Welcome to the Mobile Home Park Operator Experience. I am your host, Brandon Pedersen, talking all things operations, tips, tricks, the nitty gritty behind the scenes, with a little bit mixed in there about passive investing in one of the greatest asset classes known to the real estate industry, mobile home parks. Do me a favor, give me a follow at the MHP Operator on Instagram, TikTok, and the like, and also on LinkedIn / Brandon Pedersen. And do me a favor, hit the like, subscribe, and follow button. We're trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And to do that, we like to bring you guests. And today we are honored to have in a big hitter in the MHP space, Cory Harelson of Freedom Investing Group. He's been doing this for a long time, over a decade of experience. Now, listen, he comes from different type of background, structural engineering, where he was working 60 to 80 hours a week, grinding it away until he got tired of being away from his family. And he looked for a way out. And where did he come? He came to mobile home parks, found it as a great way for passive investing. And in those 10 years, he's built up a pretty hefty portfolio of over 500 lots and 14 parks. So, Cory, welcome to the show. It is an honor to have you here today, man.
Hey, thank you very much, Brandon. I'm really psyched to be here. I love nerding out on parks, so this is what I like to do.
I dig it. What I kind of wanted to start with first is when we talk operations. I know you're the forefront of it, but there's always a team behind the man. We got partners, we have managers and admin and all the other people that help us do the daily things that we do. Could you give us an idea of what your team today at your current 500 lot 14 park kind of what does that look like?
Yeah, totally. No, you're absolutely right. It's one of the funnest things for me right now is having, we're not a massive team, but we're a pretty tight knit, close team. I have a great team, and I'm very, very fortunate for that. And that's kind of one of the things that makes this fun. So when my first 5 years of this, it was just me and my wife and doing our own parks. And then when we pivoted to raising capital and trying to scale this thing in 2021, I partnered with my brother-in-law. So he was the first person that joined my team, and he's my partner in crime at this thing. Then we've hired a few people. So what we look like, kind of like on the base level, we have an on-site manager for every property. So that's the really front lines, eyes and ears. If something goes wrong, that's the first point of contact for tenants. And then we've hired several remote employees to kind of help manage all of the back end stuff and really support those on-site managers. So the goal is always to be supporting the on-site folks so that they can be the leader of their community that they're in. So we've got currently, it's me and my partner Thomas. And then we've got 5 employees. So we have really 3 of them are focused on the property management, because we've
So
like most MHP
total?
operators, we do our own property management.
So 5 total?
5 total plus the on-site managers. That's right. And then adding Thomas and I, if you count Thomas and I, we're 7. Yeah. Okay. So we've got 3 that are really on the operations supporting those guys. So we've got Carla is kind of is stepping in to kind of lead what we call the operations, like the property management side of things. So she's really kind of leading the rest of our remote employees, building out systems, making sure things get done, making sure that everything's running smoothly. We've got Axel, who is the main point of contact for the on-site manager. So he meets with each of them every week, and he's got a whole agenda that he goes through with each of them. He's also working with Thomas on a lot of the infill, so sourcing homes, finding people to renovate the homes, listing the homes to sell, a lot of the infill activities. That's Axel. Yes, we have another employee that we just hired a month and a half or so ago. That's an assistant for Carla and Axel to try to get some of the just paperwork and
for the property management and infill side of things.
There's an amazing amount of paperwork. It's gnarly. There's always, like, every time the mail comes in, there's the insurance company needs you to do this. The county needs you to do that. Fill out this form. There's so much stuff. It's all the time. So So those three are really on the operations side, as far as just interfacing with the on-site manager and making sure that everything's taken care of. We've got a bookkeeper, Kim, who is amazing. She's like, I didn't know bookkeepers could be so rad. She took, it was all of us, like, it was like me and then, and Carla and Axel trying to do the books. And
I've been there.
I know enough about books. Like, I can do them. I hate them.
Yeah.
But it was taking us, we have so many bank accounts. Every property's got, a couple LLCs. Each LLC has a couple bank accounts. The reconcile was just this massive task every month. Yeah. And Kim came in and just made it look, it was like, if you can just do the reconcile, you're worth a full-time salary. Yeah. And she comes in and gets it done in like 2 days.
Overseas?
Like, what else can I do? Yeah. Overseas. Yeah.
Overseas. What country?
Yes. She was in the Philippines when we hired her. She just moved to Spain though. So she now lives in Spain.
Must be paying her good.
Yeah. I mean, I know. That's one of the cool things is that some of the other countries, like what seems like a low salary to us, and someone could be like, how can you pay them that little? Like for them, it's a really good salary and they have a good life and take vacations and do all the things just like we do.
It's I come from a different background, right? And so I was in the wholesaling. I was a realtor, wholesaler, all kinds of stuff over the last like 16 years. But one of the things you do in that industry is you have to hire overseas. So like we had call centers and stuff we hired for, and you're building up these people from all different countries, from like Mexico and Venezuela and the Philippines and India and Egypt, and in every country has different livable wages. Mexico requires more than the Philippines. Mm-hmm. Philippines and Egypt, not so much. In Egypt, even less sometimes. And it's like, but with that comes cultural differences and language differences. Do they get on the phone with your customers?
Yeah, so we have
like your residents.
Yes, so we have 2 employees in Guadalajara, Mexico, 2 in the Philippines, and 1 in Spain now. And so all of them will hop on the phone for various functions.
How is that?
So the 2 in Guadalajara are great. So that's Axel and Carla are out of Guadalajara. We have a pretty large Hispanic tenant base in a lot of our communities. So that's great because they can speak Spanish. They're mountain times. The time zones are the same. They kind of get a lot of the Western kind of like just.
I could, if I talk to them, I'd be like, oh, they're pretty much, they're American. They could be.
You couldn't even. Like Axel doesn't even. Axel lived his first 10 years in the U.S. They're both. All of our people are college educated. Like they're solid. Like. You wouldn't even know.
Where did you find them, if you don't mind? Did you use Upwork, or is that what you went through to hire them, or did you use Facebook marketing?
So we got a pretty good hiring SOP that we've built out with like advice from different people. So I feel like it's pretty dialed right now. So the people in the Philippines will use onlinejobs.ph is a great website. And then Indeed. Axel and Carla, there's an Indeed. It's in, I think it's Indeed.mx maybe, but it's
like
the Mexican Indeed is pretty good. And then we'll do, if you get your job ad right, you should get a whole bunch of applicants in. So we'll typically maybe 2/3 the way down, in the middle of a paragraph, put like, answer, the question number 12, like, with the word octopus or something. And so you see who's like actually paying attention to detail, and that'll weed out 90% of them. And then we'll have them, fill out a form, and we'll look at like which answers look good and like who looks like a potential. Then we'll have those folks do a test task where they have to do something.
95% of them never do the test task.
They don't do it. And then the key thing is we have them film a Loom video explaining their answer and how they did it. So you get to hear them verbally communicate that. So so we don't waste our time interviewing 20 different people. By the time we get down to the interviews, we got 2 or 3 that are like, these look really good. And so then it's a pretty, we've had good luck with it. We're 5 for 6 as far as good.
That's the best way to do it. I didn't have anyone giving me advice to do that when I started. So I made the mistake of interviewing all 20 some people, and shortcutting and hiring the wrong people, and then they don't do stuff. So, and you're right. What you find is you ask them the questions, and you ask them something more specific, so they have to be paying attention, and that weeds out the first batch. And then you always ask them to do something, provide something, send something. 95%, maybe even 99% of the people do not send whatever it is. But you got to look at it this way, right? So you may be, man, like I really need an employee. I need someone to do this task. But if they're not going to do that to get the job, how are they going to do the job when you ask them or you trust them to do something so you could step away and do what you need to do? Like, it's a very minimal requirements, I think, for getting a job virtually without being in office and seeing, like, you have to trust that that person can pay attention to detail and can send in and do the things that you ask them to do. And if they can't do it for an interview, I mean, what's the point?
100%. Yep. So that's worked really well. So
that's good. So we have that all the way down to the bookkeeper. So we got property management. What about I didn't hear you say anything about, and I'm sure like most people you like TOH over POH, but everyone has some park owned homes. So who's handling the rehab material purchasing vendors?
So Axel is the one talking to vendors, contractors.
All of that.
He's
not just infill, but all of it.
Axel does a lot.
Is he ordering the materials?
Well, we don't so no, typically we will hire like a home renovation contractor kind of person. So we'll have, and that'll be a coordination between him and the on-site manager as far as interviewing and seeing past work. So we'll hire someone, we'll typically want a lump sum that includes material and time if we're doing a home renovation. And so typically our usual plan with the park owned homes, we'll always inherit some when we purchase, but our typical plan is let's be a good landlord while we have them. Let's have the on-site manager do the, regular inspection walks and everything, which catches a lot of stuff early. That was a lesson we kind of learned early on. Was the first couple of parks that I had those, I was still in kind of a tenant owned home mindset. And so I was like, if they don't say anything, there must not be something wrong. And then by the time they say something, it's like, oh gosh, it's like the roof's been leaking for 2 months and now it's a major renovation project. Exactly. Yeah. So the inspections are a big deal with the park owned homes. And then when the tenant moves out, what we'll typically do is instead of renovating and re-renting, we'll just renovate and sell. So over time, we're converting that stock to tenant owned home.
No. That's interesting. I do it a little different. I'll go through. So we have material standards. We do the same thing, vendor sourcing, all that, but we buy all the materials. There's only, we don't buy like the nuts and bolts is what I call it. Like, I'm not buying your nuts and bolts and caulk pretty much. Like, you buy your caulking, your nuts, your bolts, whatever you need to finish up the job. And if there's any miscellaneous lumber, but typically we source all of our materials so that way we could get the best pricing. So we'll have cabinet wholesalers in each state. Right now, I was pretty pumped. I tracked down metal distribution wholesaling so I could put metal roofing and skirting on as cheap as vinyl and stuff. So that way, and then we set pricing. So I did this because I used to work for the hedge funds back in the day, and that's what they did. At first, they would just allow vendors to send them whatever they wanted, the bids, and they wouldn't buy anything. They wouldn't do anything. And then what they did is they kept that model, but then they started telling them what they would pay and say, okay, like, we have a year or two of experience and we're all over the country. Here's what we'll pay for a roof. Here's what we'll pay for not skirting. They were homes, but you get the idea. Like, here's what we'll pay. And so I started doing that too. Is like, now I go and I said, here's our standard pricing for installing skirting. Here's our standard pricing for coating a roof. Here's our standard, and because it's all labor, it's like I'm shipping the stuff to you.
You're taking all the material markup out of it. So you're literally just paying the labor cost.
And then you got to go pick it up maybe or something like that if it's not delivered. But so that's different. But I see the benefit of what you're saying. I'm sure what you got going on is probably quicker, more streamlined, and less stressful as well.
Yes. And, we never have, it's like the trick is finding that good contractor, right? That you can trust that's going to do a good job for that price and that they understand we're in the business of affordable housing. We want good work done, but we don't need to buy like high-end materials. So sometimes you'll go get quotes from people who are used to working on, home renovations on nice houses and they're off by 5x or something what it should be. And so it's finding that person who you can trust, who's going to do that good job over and over. And then that's been kind of the way that we found success with the renovation piece to it. And then we'll usually have for whatever reason, we'll have a handful of renovations we have to get through. And those are usually, once we find a good contractor, those are not that hard. And, an expensive one might be 15 or 20 grand and we can sell it for 30, 25 or 30. And it works out well for everybody. And it's a nice product that someone can move into. The more of what we've dealt with is, hey, we have empty lots and like, how do we fill the empty lots? And so, from that perspective, there's still sometimes like a renovation for a used home or whatever, but there's,
so you're not looking for parks that have a lot of vacant homes. You're looking for vacant lots. Is that more of your strategy?
We would do more vacant homes, and you're definitely spinning my wheels on the controlling the material cost thing. I guess that's just not the ones that we found. Yeah.
Because you get cash back rewards, you become Home Depot. I mean, you start using the same vendors, you're getting a lot of discounts and rewards for those materials. Yeah. There's a lot of benefits to that.
No, that's yeah, you're making my wheel spin for sure. But yeah,
that wasn't the intent. I wasn't trying to convert you, man. I wasn't.
No, this is good. This is good. You always learn new things, right?
Yeah.
So but yeah, we've done more of the home infill thing, right? So that's where we'll typically combine. So we'll do a little bit of like 21st century cash program for new homes, and then we'll look used homes too. And so a lot of times, like the used homes, like you can get pretty good deals from the repo guys on homes that are just a few years old that still basically look brand new.
I was going to say, but they got to be
that are way less than the new homes.
But it's the age, right? Like, so I know in one of our parks in Georgia, I can't go 10 years.
We've got a park like that in Ohio too. Yeah, it's got a 10-year limit. Yeah.
And then I got other one where I called and I was actually dumbfounded. And she was like, I was like, what are you, I'm looking up rules and like what you're regulating. She goes, we don't have any. You know. So she just kept telling me like, sir, we don't have any of that. Let me just send you this document. And she did.
Just bring the homes in and do what you want.
It was a 1-page document that they did, like, I don't know, 20 years ago. The county decided that there's no rules, regulations, what you do, where you put. You don't need permits, anything inside this county. You don't need to let them know you're bringing in homes. You don't need to do. And dealing with the other counties that I was in. I was like, I don't even know what to say to this. Like, this is not,
I gotta go find more parks in that county.
That's what I was saying. I was like, this is not normal. I was like, so you don't care how close I put them. You don't care how many I bring in. I don't need, nothing.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's no more room. I can't pack any more in. It's already been packed in, but still, like, it's pretty cool. But okay, so for the infill, so hang on before we get it, because I'm kind of intrigued by the infill strategy here. But we haven't talked about on your team what you said Thomas, right? So okay, we know everything else is being handled. Pretty much your team is crushing it in the administration, handling the back end of stuff, making sure the day-to-day runs. What is it that you and Thomas do?
Yeah, so Thomas is more on the operations side. So Carla's trying to work him out of a job running the team on the operations. He does a lot of he's working with Axel a lot on finding contractors, interviewing, finding vendors, contractors, movers, sourcing homes. Him and Axel both work on selling the home. So he's still very engaged in that process. And so then what I do is I'm still involved in the operations. We have, weekly meetings where we're making decisions and figuring things out. So I've got those. And then I'm much more involved in the capital raising and the deal sourcing side of it. So that's kind of where I've put most of my focus.
Is that where you're
now? It's not where I started. Like at first it was just us me and Thomas doing everything, right?
Up until what point do you think? What do you think? 5 parks, 6 parks, 7, like, or lot count? Is there a certain lot count you got to where you're like, shit, I can't do this all on my
own? Well, I mean, it wasn't like a switch, right? I mean, Axel was our first hire. So, the first hire was awesome because it was like, hey, I don't have to reconcile the bank accounts anymore. And so it was like you just kind of taking off one piece at a time so that you can go focus on something, on go finding more parks or figuring out how to raise money for parks, figuring out how to do more deals, figuring out how to, strategize stuff. So, so it was kind of like, I just like every park that we got, I would kind of see that as like, okay, that revenue can pay for another employee.
So when you say revenue, you're talking your property management fees, right? So you're because I heard somebody, and I operate on this model, and I hate because I can't give credit to whoever it was. But when I was starting out, they had said, I run my property management business at break even. He goes, we don't aim to make a huge profit because basically it's servicing the assets itself. If we can make money, great. But every dime, and I'm ad-libbing, but pretty much every dime's going back into hiring, softwares, systems, processes, people.
And it was even every dime and more than that. Like at first, I was dumb. Our first couple properties, we didn't charge enough fees. So it was like our portion, our promote, like the portion of the cash flow that was supposed to be ours. We were just funneling it all back into paying for people at first. So
yeah, especially like my first one, We charged it. We didn't do any acquisition. I didn't even know about an acquisition fee or any of those things. And I took an 8% management fee. And then I realized like I got to fly out there. I got to do hotel. I was just eating the cost. I was just like, well, not doing that again, but like this is on me. Like I made, this is what I did. And yeah, like a lot of times you are. And then the people you're using that cash flow. So every time you're buying a park, you're thinking to yourself how to build that business.
That's right. Yep. That's right.
And I think that's important that we say that, because like I don't think, you talk about capital raising, we go out and a lot of times people say, what's your skin in the game? What are you putting in? And as a newer person or someone scaling, it's hard to explain to them that, yeah, maybe I'm not putting in 250 or 500K into this deal, but at the same point, every spare dime I have goes into making sure that the parks run. It goes into building the business that supports these investments. And a lot of people, I don't think about that when they talk about skin in the game. If you are running your own property management business, some people third party it, but at the same point, majority of guys are running it like you are.
Yeah, it seems like most of the folks I talk to, at least in the MH space, kind of build out their own property management. But yeah, the skin in the game. I mean, there's lots of, you can have money in for skin on it. You can sign on the loans. I don't know about you, but I've got a lot of bank loans that are recourse debt, right? Like that's major skin in the game. There's also just the fact that pretty much everyone I know that care about in my life at this point has invested in our deals. And like, if something were to go bad, like Thanksgiving would be real awkward. Like that's way more terrifying for me than losing my own money.
I say the same thing too. Like it boggles my mind.
It's not like it's
very I'll lose my money. Like I've lost my money before. Like I don't, my money is, it's a comes and goes, but I have my family, like you, I have family invested. I have friends invested. I partnered with friends, like business associates. And then I have these strangers. One guy I talked to, he's like, yeah, we're putting in a significant amount of our retirement into this. We trust you. And like just those words like that.
That's a heavy weight.
Yeah, it's a very heavy responsibility to steward that. And people talk about skin in the game, but again, going back to it, just the calls late at night. I'm sure, even though with your team, I'm sure you're still getting calls. All the major problems that can't be solved at that level, are you still getting the calls?
Yeah, there's definitely still things that, if it's to the point. Okay, if like the main sewer line clogs, Axel just works with the on-site manager and they've got the number for Roto-Rooter and they're on it and we'll know about it, but we don't have to get the call in the middle of the night for it. But yeah, there's definitely still stuff that's like, oh hey, what about we do our we use EOS, so I don't know, like traction. So we'll do our level 10 meeting every Thursday where it's like anything that needs to get escalated. We'll try to contain most of it there, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the buck stops, the buck stops here. Right. So if there's something that can't get solved, you can figure out how to solve it.
So what's your, other than building the team that you've built, which is a pretty amazing feat in and of itself, because I do know a lot of people who don't build the team the right way, the different departments and all that, but what's your unique gift or talent, or if you had to look back and say, we could use the word passion, like I know what you're doing now, but if you had your way and you could do one thing in the mobile home park space every day, and that was it, and everything else was handled perfectly fine, what would that be that you think you're really good at and you would just have passion doing? It could be anything. It could be being on site, fixing plumbing leaks. It could be raising capital, whatever it is, but everything else is handled. What would that be?
I like, I don't know if that's like the way to phrase it. I like talking to people. So I would say like being a mentor, leadership. So like I like meeting with I like operations. I love talking operations. I don't like being the person who does the operations, but I love being able to be like, ooh, like let's see if we can make a better system for that. Right. We're going to be meeting with Axel and Carlo on Friday to brainstorm. Can we use some custom GPTs to figure out how to do our newsletters better to our tenants? Right. Like, I don't like, let's figure out a better system here. So I love that aspect of it, as well as, which I think which is why I said like the talking to people piece, because the other piece that I really like, and this was kind of unexpected, but the on the raising capital side, you get in some really good conversations. I mean, you have to, right? Because you have to find people's like like, why are you investing? What's your motivation? I need to make sure like you're not putting every last dime into it, something that's not liquid. You know what I mean? So you've necessarily got to go into some really deep topics that you don't normally get to go into. And so there's some really, really, you get to hear about people's hopes and dreams and some really cool conversations. So on the two different, it's almost, I mean, it literally is two different businesses, but like on the property management side of it, I would definitely say like coaching our people and getting to see them be hungry and wanting to learn and getting to support them. And then on the like more investing side of it, it's just getting to have conversations with people.
Yeah. I mean, this is obviously the first time we're talking over a phone or a VoIP Zoom call, but it's funny because like reading your background and stuff, the engineering, when you said that, like that's kind of makes sense, right? Like that engineering of your team, the systems with the team, the GPTs you mentioned, building up those processes, kind of like the mechanics or like you like tweaking the guts of things to make it like because you did that. I don't know if you noticed, but you were like moving your hands like you're tweaking things. But that makes sense. So obviously that's something. So okay, so let's dive into that then. You talked about GPTs. You talked about your processes, and I'm assuming let's talk about right now what software systems you have in. I'm assuming Rent Manager, right? Okay. What do you have encompassing and surrounding that that you use?
Yeah, so we've got Rent Manager is kind of the hub for the property management stuff, and then what's cool about Rent Manager is it's got a bunch of integrations. So one of the things that we've done is we've fully automated the whole payment process. So we do not accept payments on site at all at any of our properties. It's just like hard stop.
Yeah.
Other than like if someone's buying a house or something, we can take the on-site manager can take the check for that. But for rent payments, we just don't do it. So we've got the integration with Zego, which the challenge with that with a mobile home park is that you always have some residents that are older that have a landline telephone and they only get paper mail and they don't have internet. They're never going to have internet. They don't have a cell phone. So you can't just tell them you have to pay online because they literally can't do it. But so then what's cool about Zego is they can just go pay at Walmart, right? They get their Zego number. They've got the integration, so the relationship with a bunch of retailers, including Walmart. So they can just go to the customer service counter at Walmart, give them their number and pay there if they want to pay with cash or however they want to pay. So it allows you to automate that. And then what's cool is if you automate that, down to the minute once people have paid. So you can automate some other things like some friendly text messages that go out and say, hey, to the people that haven't paid yet, just a reminder, tomorrow is the last day to pay before your late fee kicks in.
What do you use for that?
Rent Manager. There's just you can automate the text message and you can base it off of who hasn't paid in Rent Manager. Because Rent Manager has the two-way texting kind of built into it. And we use Metron meters at a lot of our places. So the water meters post automatically goes to the bill. Rent Manager automatically emails and paper mails the bill. The residents get the bill. They automatically pay. Rent Manager automatically sends the reminder text to those who haven't. You can do the late fee. So all the way down until you get into like, hey, we're in a serious collection mode. That's all automated through Rent Manager, which is cool. And like, I think it helps just being consistent with the collection.
So you're using the automations inside Rent Manager for rent collection. What else do you use? Any other automations within Rent Manager, or any other softwares that you use to help?
Yeah. So the other thing, so we do use our books. We use bookkeeping and Rent Manager. We use the violation feature. So there is you can kind of make it easier to streamline the violations. This was one thing we made a push on kind of this past year is we would spend all this money on CapEx and new roads and fencing and signage and stuff to make it nice. And it's like, but that guy's got a mountain of junk in his yard. You can spend all this money on CapEx and it still looks trashy, right? So we
did the same thing this year.
We've been making a push with our on-site managers. Like every week you've got to go walk and do because it's not fair to the residents who want to keep their place nice and who want to have a nice place to live to have the next person next door have a mountain of junk. So we've been really
it makes sense though. I mean, you only don't like it if you're the person with the bad yard or we find it's not even the yards, it's the back decks. Like they love to just stash things on those back decks. We have a park where it's like the guy had, everything's like an 8x8 wooden deck on the back, with a roof. and people just use it. And they just like boxes, especially Christmas time, or like they move in, and then it'll just be like weeks or months, and cardboard that gets wet attracts roaches and bugs, and roaches, once they're there, look for somewhere else to go. It's a domino spiral effect that we want to avoid. But like we're always nice about it. Hey, can you do this? And then they wouldn't, and we give them warnings, but never enforcing the violations. And it was sometime beginning of last year. It was 2024, and I was just like, that's it. I was like, we're going hard. I was like, no more waving late. Like we're just, and we made I hate to say it, but like we made quite a bit of money in that park just on the violations. Now we get, within a couple days, they're, whatever's the problem, they all know. They now know that the fees are coming, and they could be intense, and so they'll get it done within, like, we usually give them 24 to 72 hour like notice. You know what I mean? Just like, you got 2 to 3 days, you get it done. We're going to come by and check. If not, this is your fine. It's in our lease. We're allowed to do it if they don't do it, and we can continue to charge them.
Yeah, it's just like you have to make things important for people to prioritize. I think the same thing with collections. You try to be nice, and so you let somebody skate a month, and then the next thing you know, they have this huge balance, and they literally can't
never
get it caught
down.
up.
Yeah.
So it's like if you stay on it from the beginning, then they prioritize it, and it's like, oh, I've already got a court date. Oh my gosh, but I'm only 1 month behind. I can figure out a way to get caught up, right? Versus if they're 3 or 4 months behind, then they can't. So
once it gets, what's that magic number?
The consistency.
What do you think the magic number is that's too far gone on collections for the majority of the average mobile home park tenant?
I feel like if it's $1,000 or $1,500, people figure it out. If you're like $3,000, $4,000,
yeah. 2,500 is my kicker. Once we're at like the 20, right. Once you're at 2,500, like, unless we're like tax season's around the corner, something's gonna happen. Like, I don't see, because next month's rent's coming. Like, I don't see how you're gonna get that down.
And I think if we let them get that far, we screwed up. Yeah. That's on us. Like we screwed up. We shouldn't have let you get that far behind. We should have made a big deal when you were $800 behind, so that by the time that notice expired, now you're $1,200 behind, and you can scrape that together from somewhere, right? Like skip the big screen TV payment or something. But I don't know if you've noticed.
No,
all the mobile homes have bigger TVs than me.
I know. I was talking to somebody when we took over this park earlier this year, and the guy's like, I can't pay my rent. And I was like, why is that? He's like, I just bought a car. I was like,
where do you plan to park it?
Yeah, like that. I was like, okay. And I was just very blunt. I was like, because it was the first month. I was like, we're very lenient the first month. I was like, we don't charge late fees. I said, but by next month, if this month's rent's not paid, not only do late fees kick in, but we move forward towards eviction. He left voluntarily. We had a talking. He left voluntarily by the following month. He tried paying, couldn't pay, realized there was no coming back, dude. Like, he bought a car. All of his spare cash went into the car. And they're not buying cars on, like, crazy loans. Typically it's like a used car, so it's a down payment cash that they now no longer have to cover their shortfalls. And we've seen that time and time again. And we've seen it time and time again. Yep, we're back. And we've seen it time and time again where it's usually the big purchases. What about, like, do you see, I mean, our collections are pretty good. We're always, by the 10th of the month, we're typically 90-some% collected, with the exception of like a few people that always have some payment plan or something. But what about the holidays?
Yeah, there's always some people, like coming into January, there's always some people that are a little behind, and we'll work with people if they're communicating with us. Like if hey, you need a payment plan. Okay, look, you can pay an extra $150 a month for the next 3 months. We won't do the late fee.
Yeah, so you'll do that. We do that too. Yeah.
We'll as long as you're communicating with us, we'll work with you, right? But it's always the ones who just go radio silence that are the ones that end up in court.
It's like my thing. Yeah. What I tell people when I'm on site is communication is key. I was like, we're not going to start eviction protocols with you, and we won't charge you. If you call us and you let us know what's going on, you communicate, you respond when we text or call you or email you. That's all that we ask. Our goal is not to kick people out of homes.
Right.
Our goal is to keep everyone happy. But like you said, it's always the ones that go radio silent that always wind up. And everyone's got their reasons. But yeah, and so the automations I could see really help that. That's interesting. We do not use the automations for that. So we have a team, but I got to look into that, actually, figuring out how to automate how to automate the collection, because we manually send out emails and text messages right now.
Yeah, the
He
automations in
spends
Rent
a lot of
Manager.
time. Yeah, I got to look at that.
Yeah.
But Rent Manager is awesome, but so intense and like extremely so much that I know I'm not even using.
Yeah, it can do a lot, but it's like the user interface leaves
so
a little bit
but I get it.
1990s.
Yeah. But like, I have a software buddy who's in SaaS, and he's sold some of his companies, and I was showing him this, and he's like, "Oh." He goes, "What is that?" I was like, "Yeah, but it does so much, man. Like, look at all the stuff he does." He's like, "I still feel like they could do something with this, but it's so cumbersome." What do you use for your phone systems?
So we use we've got for my remote people, they just get a cell line through Open Phone is the app that they use. And then what we use is we have the LCS phone number, so the Rent Manager phone number, but we don't use like the landline VoIP phone things. We set up, so if you call into the park, you get an automated thing, and one of the options is to talk to the on-site manager, and that option just forwards to their cell phone. We could probably, I don't know, like I know there's more to it than that, but it ends up like if our on-site managers, some of them are tech savvy, not all of them are very tech savvy, and so like the more we could just keep it simple for them, the better. So we just have it forwards to the cell phone. And then there's another one, and then there is an option where they can get a mailbox that we will get to, so the residents can get around the on-site manager if they need to get a message to us.
You should check out Smartphone. Smartphone.io, SMRT. Jordan's the owner of it. He's a pretty cool dude. I've been working with him for quite a while. Don't know what your cost is or anything, but it's a VoIP system, and it's a ring on your phone, forward to your cell phone. You can have an app on your phone, texting. So every park gets its own number. Emergency lines have their own numbers. You track the calls, track the minutes talking, who's calling in. Everything's recorded, so you can make sure especially for training, who's getting talked to or what. Or when those people like to say, "I called you to try to pay my rent and you did not pick up the phone," you're like, "Well, that's funny. Like, I have all of my call logs right here."
Yeah, and that's the LCS one does do the call recording, which is we haven't needed it much, but there's been a few times where I've been very happy we had it.
I love it because people will be like, "I've been trying to call you all day. I haven't gotten a hold of anybody." I'm like, that's funny. I'm like, I don't have any voicemails. I don't have any text messages.
Missed calls.
I don't have. Yeah, I'm like, it's always that. And it's always the same people that say stuff like that. They haven't paid their rent or something, and they always pin the blame. So it's nice to have that tracking. So, okay, anything I wanted to ask you, like you mentioned GPT. So we've covered a lot of the softwares that you're using, and of course you got your accounting softwares and all of those things. But let's start at the top. How do you think AI is going to affect our space of not real estate in general, but like our space? Do you feel we're safe? What do you think is going to happen because of what's going on with AI?
Well, I think, just as far as like our market, our industry, people are always going to need a place to live, right? AI is not going to mean that you don't need a place to live. So I feel good about the space that I'm in. If I was a, coder, I'd be pretty, especially if I was an entry level, like someone coming out of college right now who had just learned to code, I would be pretty nervous because I think the AI has taken most of those entry level jobs. That whole industry, I don't know what they're going to do when the experienced people retire and there's no entry level people becoming experienced. But we're not in that boat. We're just providing housing. So I feel good about it from that perspective. I don't think I think there's a lot of stuff it can do really well, but there's also a lot that I feel like they'll promise this much, and like this little piece down here, it'll actually do really well. But then this whole chunk right here, I don't know. It takes a lot of work for me to get it to actually spit out something good. So I like it for things where it's not a right or wrong answer, because sometimes it will just be wrong and it will be very confident in its wrong answer. But something like a tenant, like our quarterly newsletter to our residents, if we have the format in there, what's cool is you can use the custom GPTs, where you can tell it everything, teach it everything it needs to know, and it'll actually remember it. So you don't have to go reteach it every time. So you could use, here's the newsletter, here's the sections that we always want to have in our newsletter. You know, if it's the fall newsletter, we want to tell everybody to check their skirting to make sure there's no gaps so they don't get burst pipes in the winter. And so then you can come in and you can say, hey, let's write this newsletter. Here's the updated, you know, topics that we want to hit on. Like, this is what's going on, bing, bing, bing. And you can just tell it and it'll spit out a really good newsletter. And it's like, it doesn't need to be perfect. I would not use it to say like, hey, go build me an underwriting model. Cause it's not going to be right. So I don't know if that makes sense, but for things where it's like, it's not right or wrong. It just needs to be like, look good and have that kind of use case I found really useful. So
what about have you thought about it like, hey, your employees or because you know I was listening, so I was on a podcast where the guy he was talking about sales, customer service, kind of like a voice AI. And so they put my phone in and I answered the call, and it was Sarah was her name, and honestly, like, it was very good. Now, would I use it to try to buy mobile home parks? No, but could you use it to answer incoming resident calls or, you know, those types of things? And would you consider it for something like that? Would you ever think about
I've
bringing
thought
AI
of
in?
that, like updating, like, you know, you could upload the lease and all of the policies, right? And residents could call with questions like that. That could be a really good use. We haven't done that, but yeah, I've called some of those things too, where it's like the voice thing, and it's a little
I've
creepy.
called some bad ones, but like this guy's software was really good, and he was pitching it for sales, and I was like, that's not what I do anymore. But I was like, if it ever gets to a point for customer service, I could definitely see where I could use AI answering the call, because as you get to a bigger, you know, more parks, more tenants, more units, inbound calls become a thing, and I'm starting to see it. And it's like, how do you handle that if you're always on the phone handling one thing? So there was a guy I listened to, and I forget his name, but he says he uses like a vector database where he decided he uses like a custom GPT, and he goes in and he uploads everything, like all the responses of like, here's a question, here's my response, here's a question, here's what we would say in this instance, and has uploaded it for everything essentially. And so now his team, it's not a voice one, but they could type in, hey, we had this happen. And then the AI will basically spit out, here's what you're supposed to do based on the data given to him by the boss, basically. So now he's not getting bothered. His team can get the answers, you know, the questions answered faster. Like I got recently asked one, hey, do we allow playground equipment? And I was like, we have a rule book, like look at the rule book. But that would have been like easy before you texted me. But I was just thinking, man, that would have come in really handy. Like if they would have just had another resource. Obviously the rule book was the resource that they could use. But
but people are lazy. They don't want to go read.
Yeah, they don't want to go read
the rule book. Right?
No, they don't know where in the rule book
upload the rule book and have them ask the GPT.
They asked it's like, what about that?
That could be, that's probably, you're probably spot on. The thing I would be nervous about, I would just want to test the heck out of it. Cause what if, what if the GPT was like, heck yeah, I mean, we've had people like, hey, can I have a donkey? And like, we've had to say no to a donkey, you know what I mean? And donkey wasn't in the rule book. And what if the GPT was like, donkey's great. You know what I mean? Like, then they could say, your thing told me I could have it. I already spent the money on it. You know what I mean?
You're on the hook.
So I would want to test it and have some kind of a thing where it was like, if it doesn't know the answer, it needs to escalate it to a person, not just make up an answer. That would be where I would be nervous with that.
Yeah, there was someone who got a car for like $1 off of Chat AI bot was it GMC or something? They convinced the bot to agree to a sale of $1 for a brand new vehicle, and then like the manufacturer, they were backpedaling. They all had to pull it out of their websites or whatever. The guy hacked it pretty much to get it to do what he wanted it to do to prove a point. But I do see the issues with that. Now, you haven't brought up the one thing that kind of scares me, and we've talked, like I listen to a lot of podcasts, and they always say like, what's the one thing that could threaten this industry, right? Like this space. And so when I look at AI, the one thing I don't understand, and I was wondering if you had any thoughts on it, was like, you mentioned we are affordable housing. Well, that affordable housing is important, but what about if AI comes in and replaces all the jobs that you talked about? Have you thought about how we would respond to universal basic income and like how that would even affect us? Because in my mind, I think it's a negative. Do you feel like that could be, because that's where we're going? We all agree jobs are getting replaced. And at some point, a UBI might need to be necessary. And if that's the case, how do you even price a unit anymore if everyone's getting the same income? If there's no the supply and demand, the demand factor has now changed.
Maybe, but wouldn't it? And this is I'm fascinated by this topic too, and not an expert on UBI, but
me neither.
But I mean, thinking about it, like if there is a UBI, that's probably the lowest level. I mean, if you just think about it like relative, like there's probably still going to be people who go above and beyond that, and that's probably the lowest level of income
100%.
in this society now. So they still have an amount of income they need to spend. A portion of that needs to go to housing. Housing is expensive, so affordable housing is still a need. I mean, if you just give everybody like if
the
you
same amount of money,
but then wouldn't everybody wouldn't have the same amount of money, right? Because someone else is going to go start a business. Yeah, our people would,
because they're all like, they're the ones getting replaced.
But then you wouldn't have to worry about income validation for your residents anymore.
True. Do you think it would help? Do you think that we'd be able to raise? I guess my concern is where I was going, and I don't know the answer, is would it stagnate our rents because they can't make more money? Like you can, because the people getting replaced, like I was telling somebody, I was in the airport and I was traveling. And so in the airport, McDonald's, they had all their registers up. And I've been in this airport like every couple of months to fly out to the parks. Now they got kiosks. Registers emptied, everyone's ordering off the kiosk. I was in a Circle K gas station. All the regular registers gone. They have these, you just put it in there and it reads whatever you put in there, and it's like, and it just tallies it up. You don't even need to scan. You just set it on a thing. That's crazy. Like reads whatever. Those are the people that live in our parks, though. Like these are the people that the janitors, the cleaners, the
truck drivers.
Yeah, and Tesla's trying to come out with their auto. I mean, that's going to be huge for Tesla. Not an endorsement for Tesla stock, but honestly, Tesla, their driverless trucks are going to be huge in their taxi systems. But okay, so all those guys or people, there are occupants.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, and there's no UBI out there yet.
And when it comes, if they're all making the same amount and they can't go get more, and let's be honest, most of these people aren't going to want to go get more, even if they could. That's my concern is like, yeah, we could charge $900 a month or 500, whatever, 500 for lot rent. But like, is it going to be like New York where you can't then go up anymore? Like, does rent control come in? Not rent control in the way we know it today, but rent control is in the UBI, as in if you're on universal basic income, you become a protected status, and we can't change rents on you without approval from some. Have you ever had that with housing authority?
Well, I'm not in any rent control states, fortunately.
No, but do you use Section 8 at all?
No, because you can't really use Section 8 with tenant-owned homes. That's really only rentals, right?
So we have a bunch of rentals. So with Section 8, we were raising rents and we sent it out for the one lady. This was in May. Section 8 said, yeah, this is approved, but not until December when we go through her review. And I'm like, oh, so you get to tell me when they can raise the rents, and and you have to get approval for it. Like you can't just, it's got to be reasonable, you know? And I had to give them the reason, the why. And that's where I was thinking with UBI. I'm just curious, man. I'm not trying to get off topic, but like you started talking about GPTs and you got my mind going about like how this affects us.
I mean, I guess what it could do is there's certain, so your property's worth an amount of money because it's producing an amount of income, right? You apply a cap rate to it and there's your value, right? So the way that in like a value add style park, the way you're making a return is it's not just the cash flow, you're increasing that income, which increases the value, right? So if you're limiting what you can increase on the rent side, you've obviously still got occupancy you could go fill up potentially if there's the demand. And then you're kind of where you are. So, I mean, maybe like one thing I definitely believe, I don't know if it's because of UBI or just because they're all going to get bought up by institutions and now they're all nice and all full and now it's apartments. I do kind of believe that there's still a good buying opportunity in mobile home parks, but it's not going to be around forever for one reason or another. Maybe it's UBI that does, I don't know, but but it's like if you buy them now and you increase that revenue now, even if you're it's almost like get them now while you can, and you can have that build that income in.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I see where you're going. I definitely think the buying opportunity, and I love we have a hybrid RV park too, and we're opening up some RV spots in another one of our parks. So definitely see the affordable housing isn't just MH. There's RV factors to it. Like we get in our one county, we're allowed to have RVs parked there long term. We get a lot of calls. They move in, they pay the same rate. Only problem is they're more, they can really pick up and go at any moment. So it's really hard to keep them. We've had some for years, but like we had one didn't want to do their 30-day notice, and so they're just like, I'm leaving this weekend, and it's like we can't what are you
going to do? Hunt them down for the
for the eviction. So like there's some give or takes, but I agree the buying opportunity is there. AI does scare me with some of the stuff going on that I think our residents are going to be the ones primarily affected, and I think there's going to be a lull with collections. I think there is going to be something going down, because if all these people get replaced before UBI comes in, what's going to happen? That's my only thought. But I mean, I think AI is going to help us in a lot of other ways. You're using it in your business on the daily, it sounds like, to try to type letters and do your marketing and stuff like that.
Trying to be more efficient with it. Yeah. I mean, if it's there, it's a tool. We need to take advantage of it and do what we can to be, if there's a way we can be more efficient and still provide a good service, then I say, heck yeah, let's do it. But yeah, you got my wheels spinning a little, because up until now, like our residents, like if you look back at like COVID or the Great Recession or something, like look at COVID, our residents are the essential all the like essential employees that didn't have to stop working during COVID.
Yeah.
That's all our residents. They're driving the trucks, they're checking you out at the grocery store. They are the people making societies function right now. And you've got me thinking about like which portion of those jobs, because AI is not just coming for them, right? AI is also coming for a bunch of white collar jobs too, right?
Yeah.
Like lawyers, computer programmers.
Oh yeah,
it's a whole thing up and down the scale. So I
know. Lawyers,
yeah,
I was going through that. Like
plumbers, construction people. We got a lot of construction people. I don't think I mean, maybe they make a robot that does that, but I don't think that's getting AI'd out yet.
Not yet. That's going to be one of the longer plays, I think. Before I think trades are going to be safe. But the lawyers and stuff, there's an interesting article. There's a couple of them by the guy who started LinkedIn, also Eric Schmidt from Google. And then there's an article called AI 2027. I highly recommend. There's also a YouTube video, 30 minutes, goes down AI 2027, the two different routes of what could happen with AI and with our economy. Very, very interesting. But you're right. Our people were great during COVID, but during this time, the residents, it's going to be a whole different beast of like what's going to happen. And if I really want to blow your mind, without getting into politics, what Trump is doing is, I think, getting rid of property or personal income taxes is going to be great. But if you think about our business and capital raisings, what's your number one pitch for not just cash flow, right? But like, what's your pitch to investors?
Bonus depreciation.
But if you take away taxes, holding real estate, one of the benefits of real estate over stocks is the depreciation, right? Not just the cash flow, like the dividends, aka cash flow, but it's the depreciation that really kicks us over. Like you have the average stock is like 7 to, I think it's like 6 to 8% or something. When you add a dividend on, it gets up to like maybe 9% on the dividend paying stock on average. Well, mobile home parks will typically return you 10% or so, if not more, if you're doing value add. If you're stabilized, probably right around the stocks. But when you add in bonus depreciation and offsetting a lot of your other gains, that's something stocks can't do. And so that's a huge pitch. How do you feel about getting rid of personal income taxes now that I've said that?
I've heard the rumor. It's interesting. I mean, there's definitely like the real estate's paying you in 4 ways, right? You got your cash flow, you got your loan pay down, your appreciation, and your tax benefit. So it's one of the 4. Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting.
I'm making you think. Yeah,
I do think when you're comparing the stocks to the real estate, there's what I see a lot is there's a tendency to compare the cash on cash, just the cash on cash return of the real estate to the overall return of the stock market. And you can say, hey, our cash on cash, we think year one, we're going to be at 5%. And, by year 5 will be in the low teens or something. And they'll say, oh, 5%. Well, like whatever, my bond can get me 5%.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I've had that.
The stock market returns 9, but the stock market's not giving you 9% cash flow. The dividend's like 1.5. So that you're looking at 5 to 1.5. You're looking at the overall return of the stock. That's mostly appreciation. So I think if you have a value add property and you add that appreciation in there on top of the cash flow, I feel like risk, and this is my opinion and admittedly biased because
I was about to say that, not biased at all.
I feel like the real estate is like risk adjusted for me a much better bet than the volatile 100%. Real estate. And that's just there's that like it's not just the cash on cash, it's the loan pay down and the appreciation too. So you have to look at, which is why like the IRR I feel like is really the comparison to the stock market, not the cash. I mean, cash flow is what's real. Cash flow is what's real, and IRR, you got to make a bunch of assumptions. So I hear you on that, but the cash flow is not your total return, and in the long run, it's not even going to be most of your return.
No, it's not. It's not.
So it's neglecting everything else. You're missing most of the picture, I feel like, and it's not necessarily an apples to apples comparison.
But the one thing you left out that I think, again, biased opinion, is there's an end date or a seeming, if I tell, and I'm making this number, if I say I believe we can make a 15% total return by year 5, that okay, I'm going to have 15% of my money per year, right? So average, let's just say we do a 2x multiple in that time, right? Some standard figures or whatever. I guess that'd be 20% a year, but either way, I'm giving you a timeline and saying 5 years is our goal for that. As an investor, you're thinking, okay, like, does 5 years line up with me? Yes or no? I don't know any stock. Like, I don't think Kevin Plank of Under Armour or Elon Musk of Tesla or anybody is coming out and be like, hey, buy our stock, and within 5 years, here's what it's going to be. No one's saying that. Of course, you have the analysts and everyone trying to predict where the stock price is going to be. I think that's unique with real estate, not just mobile home parks. Honestly, we can jazz up MHPs all we want, but with most commercial assets, it's like that if you're getting in with the right operator. Would you agree with that? Like, that timeline, that's one of the bigger benefits, is the kind of knowing that if the operator does what he says he's going to do.
Right. And there's a whole lot of I think there's like pros and cons both ways, right? And like I don't mean to like be trashing the stocks have one big pro with the stocks.
Oh, we can trash stocks if we want to trash stocks.
Put your money in, take it out whenever you want. We're not liquid, right? Like that's in my mind, that's the biggest difference. Is if we say like, hey, our plan is 5 years, you shouldn't put your money into that deal if you think you want to buy a house with that money next year, right? Like that's you shouldn't. And so but at the same time, that could be a plus because what's the biggest problem with stocks is that people panic sell when they drop. And so they did that study where it was like was it Fidelity or somebody, and they looked at like all the groups of their investors and who did the best over the longest period of time. It was the dead guys because they just couldn't panic sell. So their dead investors beat everybody because they couldn't panic sell. So some sense, like locking that up for a while and not having that panic sell button like 2 mouse clicks away, for most people, I think is actually a good thing.
I agree with that. And it's like, obviously you want a balanced portfolio. I totally understand, but you also left out, not trying to bash stocks, but you've got no control over it. And I'm not saying you have control over me. If you read and we haven't really talked, but I know from researching you do syndications as well. And most of the people investing, passive investors, are, they like to get into that syndication because it does provide them the control over picking what investment they're in versus a fund. Okay, stocks, you don't get to control what product line a business goes into, right? Like you can't call them and say, I don't want to give you my money if you make these types of sneakers. But on top of that too, is you can call me. I may not change my mind, but in my syndication, the syndication documents, I have full authority. I would have to mess up really bad for you to like try to replace me. All these things, there's outs, but generally I'm in charge. But it still means that you can call me. You have my cell phone. You can email me. You can text me at
versus Apple. Hey, Tim,
hey,
why'd
Tim,
you do that?
hey, Tim, I own like 50K of your shares, man. Like, hey, can you give me a call tonight?
Can we get on the phone? I really want to understand why you did that.
Yeah. Hey, can I meet you at one of your plants, please? I'd like to do a walkthrough of your new manufacturing facility. But I had a guy do that. I was out in Arkansas, and he called me, and he invested like, our minimum investment, but still he invested with us. And he was like, I was out there the other time. I should have called you, but we're gonna head out. Like, would you want to meet? I was like, of course. Like, that's me. I'm always out of the parks anyway. Just make sure, like, don't call me like 2 days before you're going, but like, give me a heads up and we'll plan something. And that also, like, yes, they may not have control over what the park does on a day-to-day, but they still get the semblance of control. Like, you know what I mean? They still get that feeling of, I can touch this, it's tangible. And this guy that I gave my money to is accessible.
Right. Yep. 100%. Yep.
Do you feel you make yourself accessible to your investors?
I try to be as accessible as I can. Yeah, I'm always willing to hop on a phone, answer an email, shoot me a text. That's one thing I feel pretty strongly about. Yeah, is we need to, like, we have to be like, they're trusting us with their money savings, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's
we
a gift.
need
It
to
truly
be
is
accessible.
Yeah. Let me ask you, and no one told me this when I got into space, and I kind of like deduced it on my own, but what is your ideal? So you got it one deal. Let's say it's the deal you just took down, right? Okay. And you take this deal down, you've raised all the capital. What is your ideal like, how do you communicate with those LPs?
So yeah, our minimum that I do is every quarter I'll do a quarterly report. So I'll send, it's like an email summary where I'll do like a recording where I'm going through it, and we'll have like, hey, here's the income, here's the expenses, here's the NOI, here's, all the different, here's what's going on, here's the CapEx projects we're working on, here's the ones that are coming up, here's where our occupancy sits. Like, I try to do a pretty complete, like, picture of what's going on with the park, and I'll typically film
that's a
webinar thing to go along with it.
I might steal that idea. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, the Loom is Loom. We didn't talk about Loom. Loom is
I do the letter, but I didn't think about a recording. That's genius, because it adds that personal touch. Like, they're, like, yeah, that's nice.
And then on some of the newer deals, what we've been doing too, I tried it on all of them, and like the older ones, I found that it wasn't necessary. People weren't showing up. But on some of the newer ones, what I've been doing too is we'll set up a webinar actually for everybody after we send the update, where then we can just like live go through it.
How's the turnout for that?
For the newer deals, like the ones that are within a year, like pretty good. We get a 20 or 30% of the people seem to show up. When I first started doing it, I started doing it because one of the people that raised some capital for us, my friend Stacy, she was like, this is like our standard. We do this on all our deals. I'll partner with you, but you have to do this webinar. I was like, hey, that's a great idea. Let's do it. And so I got all excited. I scheduled it for all of my deals, but the ones that were old, my investors are used to my quarterly things. I know them all anyway, so I'm already kind of talking to them.
Friends or family. So
nobody showed up. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to my Loom for most of the stabilized ones that don't have a lot going on. But then some of the new ones we did that, and it was good. And so here's an AI use. If you're already writing up this kind of detailed summary of everything, a gamma.ai, I don't know if you played with that. You can literally just copy and paste that thing into Gamma and be like, make me slides. It will make your slides in like 10 seconds, and you'll have like a really cool deck. And
just gamma.ai.
Yeah, GAMMA.ai. It's awesome for like PowerPoint. If you need to do like a presentation, and then I'll swap. It'll have AI images, so I'll usually swap them out like with actual images from the park that we're talking about. But that's an AI time saver for sure, and especially if you've already put the effort into making doing a good summary. So
I did my first park was, I didn't even send out letters. Like, my first year, I didn't even know. It was friends and family. They never, honestly, sometimes I don't even think they read anything that I send them. I don't think they care. It's like, by the way, the whole park burned down. Man.
Crickets.
I know, like, they're just like, it's Brandon, whatever he does. But obviously, as you go, where I was going with that is like, and I'm sure a lot of yours too, right? Like, the beginning people, how you find your investors is different. It's very old school. So they like the old school methods, but I'm sure now you're meeting people digitally through social media, through these events that you go to or podcasts that you're on like this or anybody else, is that people reach out to you. So maybe they're more tech savvy, they're more sophisticated. So now that's kind of where I was going, is like now like you're stepping it up to meet the needs of these more diligent or sophisticated type of investors. I know sophisticated kind of cross references a syndication term, but like that's not what I meant. I meant just, you know, the more tech savvy type of people. So that's interesting. I never thought of doing that, like, because we do the letters, but the video is pretty cool. Now, outside of that though, do you, I don't know, call them, text them, any updates? Like, do you feel the need for that, or is that just like, do you only do that every so often?
So I send out, so I do, so that's like for each deal, I do that quarterly thing. So it's like once a quarter, which takes quite a bit of effort because I put a lot of effort into those updates. So that's like a couple of weeks of pretty intense effort every 3 months. And then what I also do is I do a weekly newsletter just to my whole kind of list of folks, where I call it my like Fig 3. For me, it helps to have a format as far as like being able to actually think of the content. But so it's, it's usually like at first it's like a little bit of like, hey, here's what I've been up to. And then it's one thing that I'm excited about that we're doing in the business right now. It's one relevant, like recent article and kind of my take on it. And then here's an investing concept that's here's what cap rate means, or, you know, some kind of like educational thing. So that kind of hits different
I get
people,
your emails.
different people.
I'm pretty sure I got that one email where you sent that out where you're like, here's an article and here's, you know, you do your 3 things. I read them, man. I enjoy reading your articles and other people's that send them out because I think it's important stuff to see how other people. In fact, that's how you and I connected, was email articles and stuff.
I saw actually one of yours that I responded to. So yeah, likewise. Like I thought your communication was really good there. So that was that was actually me responding, going like, hey, I'm not actually a member of your deal thing, but this was a really good email. Good job.
Yeah. Well, what I did for that is like, so I use AI. I write my articles every couple of weeks. I'll do like a bi-weekly article just about something, and I write it, and then I have AI trained to be my editor. So it goes through, adds the commas. I'm horrible at grammar. I am great at writing, horrible at grammar. You would think I was a second grader if you read the unedited version. Be like, where are the commas and periods? Like, it's just one giant run-on sentence. But so what I do though is I'll write our annual or our quarterly letters, right? And then so because that takes so long, I also don't write my bi-weekly articles. So what I do is I give ChatGPT and I'll be like, okay, here's for all of our parks, here's our financials, here's like all of the, because we do like rehab reports, summaries, everything, expenses, all the stuff. I throw it in there and I'm like, now let's put together an article with all of this. And then so that's like what you responded on was like an article about all the performance letters that we're talking about sending out to the investors. Because I also feel like it's important for other people to see what you're doing on what do you call it, like a macro sense versus like that minute, like we're always thinking park to park. Sometimes we don't really talk about like all of them put together, how we perform, because we are so focused on the individual syndications a lot of times.
Right. Yeah. You get super down into the weeds. Right. And it's that's one good thing about doing those quarterly things is it really does make you step back and look at the holistic picture for each one.
Like what's your
and actually having to like define it like in an actual email, like it's a really good, just kind of thought exercise as far as what's your thesis, here's where we are, here's what we're doing, here's why. Really having to you're doing all that already, but having to actually sit down and put it into words, at least for me, is helpful.
Yeah, it's helpful for not just your current investors, but potential investors or other people in this space. I remember when I was raising capital, I was going to ask you some capital raising questions, but like I remember I was calling people. And, you know, I'd raise capital one year. And then, you know, obviously when I started out, I bought one park per year, pretty much my first couple of years. And I was just like, okay, bought this park, calling people. Hey, you know, I need money. Give me money. And then the next, guess what? You don't hear from me. And then another year goes by, buying another park. Hey, give me money. And after that, I noticed my reception like the reception I was getting was not like it was. It was like
Mm.
no one actually said it, but I got the vibe of like, I haven't heard from you for like a year. Like, did you even buy the other park I said no to? Like, what have you been doing? Like, well, how do I even? And the one guy was like, well, he goes, did you make any money? And I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, you called me like a while ago, but on the park, have you guys been making money? And it really just like, wow, does he not know I'm making money? Like, of course I'm making money. It's a park, Prince cash flow, all these things. And I talked to somebody older and wiser than me, and he goes, well, how would you expect them to know what you're doing if you only call them once a year when you want money? And I was like, well, what? Oh, I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, it was all clicking, and he's like, you don't give them any updates. I was like, well, why would they want, and here I am, why would they want updates? Right. And it's like, and then that was when I think, because I signed up for I found you somehow, and I signed up for one of your articles and a couple others, because I was curious, like what you guys were doing, because you guys have been in the space longer than me. And I was like, yeah, like you got to give people updates. Like, even if they're not investing, you put them on this list. And even if they don't read it, they still see things. So like where I'm going with all of this, right, is to ask you, like, when you communicate and you're raising capital, how do you feel your reception is? Do you keep in touch with the people, not about the deal, right? But do you feel your email does a good job keeping them up to date with what you're doing? The people that you're attempting to raise money from, are there other ways you reach out to them to keep those, what do you call it, the coals stoked, essentially, of like the furnace burning still? And they, like what happened to me, where they go cold because I was doing it once per year?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. Yeah, I'm trying, right? Like
I think you're
there's
doing a
some
good
people
job, though.
that keep up with me on LinkedIn, right? And then I send the email thing, and I do get there's certain
Yeah.
people who always respond to my emails, which I love it when people respond to my emails,
Yeah.
and then we get in a
Makes you
little
feel
back and
good. You're
forth
like,
about
ah,
what are you
yeah.
up to, and like, oh, that's cool, yeah. And then yeah, like I'll send text to people sometimes. So I do my best, right? It's not I don't call at this point. I think our list is, I mean, it's not like that. I think we got 300 and some odd people on the list. So it's not like a massive list, but it's also big enough where I can't call everybody every day. Right. So it's definitely like, how do you, but you're absolutely right. You have to nurture that relationship yeah. So it's a little bit like I kind of try to put myself out there. And then the people, I'm asking in my email, like, hey, please reply. Let me know that, like, how are you doing this? Or I try to ask a question and try to get some engagement. I love it when people respond. And so then the people who end up responding to me tend to be the ones that I keep in the most touch with.
They're probably the ones that also invest with you too.
Right. That's right. And so it's and it's fun. And it's fun because a lot of times there are people that maybe I never would have met, or maybe they were kind of an acquaintance that I knew, but we weren't like best pals. And now it's like all of a sudden, we are emailing every week and texting. Yeah. And so it's definitely fun. One thing that I've struggled with, especially like initially that I had to get my head wrapped around, was I am an engineer. I'm a nerd. I love to get way into the weeds and the details. And so like on the quarterly things and the email, like how much detail, like I don't want to just overwhelm everybody with just way more than they want. Right. At the same time, I want to be transparent and I want to tell the full story. So that's something that I'm always kind of trying to work on, like balancing, like I want to tell the whole story, but I don't want to just swamp everybody with way more.
You want to give
right?
the bad, like you don't want to hide the bad, but you also don't want to give so much where it's so complex they don't understand that, yeah, it's bad, but it's really not a big deal. But it looks really bad, but it's really not a big deal. But because you could scare some people off, essentially, like they could be like, oh my goodness, like that's happening. And to you, it's just another week in the life of an operator. But for them, it could be pretty scary. So you got to balance that. But here's the thing is like, so I think, like I said, I think you're doing a good job, right? So you got your email, you're active on LinkedIn, you're obviously active on podcasts, not just this, but like I said, I listened to a bunch of your podcasts, but you also have this free resource, www.passivemhp.com. There's a QR code up here you guys could scan, and the website's listed down with the ticker symbol. So you're handing that out as well. So it's kind of like an education as well for your investors.
Right. Yeah. And that's exactly it. Right. And I've got some investors who really, really resonate with, they like the educational piece. Right. And then some of them really just like to get the updates and know what's going on. And so that's why I try to kind of sprinkle that all into, because different people kind of value different pieces of that communication. So,
but did you or did Thomas make that? Who made that? Was that you?
Our
free resource, like putting together the.
That was me. I put that together. Yeah. So, I'm working on an update to. I need to it's been kind of the same one for the last year. So it's our PDF that kind of goes through a lot of stuff about mobile home park investing and the why and what the opportunity is and how we do it. But I'm actually working on. I want to do more of a video format one. I think will be a little more digestible. Cool. So
we're like an accompaniment, like, hey, here's the PDF, but also here's the video if you prefer that. Like that would be, people like the video. That AI 2027 article I was telling you about, the article's really long, and I have a buddy who sent it out to a couple of our friends, and I was talking to one, I was like, did you read the article? He's like, no. He's like, but the YouTube video came out and I watched that. It was only 30 minutes. But I didn't watch the video. I read, everyone's got like their thing. So I think that's cool. You can hit both sides. When you were saying like the free resource, some people like it, some people don't. I was raising capital for that latest deal we took down a couple months ago. And I was like, new investor, just doing my pitch. And I'm like, I have this free resource. Like, I could send you this, this, and this. And I have this. It's why mobile home park. And I'm pitching this thing. And he's like, just send the subscription agreement. Like, I don't know. But like, and he invested a significant amount of money, but then there'll be the ones who invest the minimum. And they really want to see all the resources. But when he said no to me, it almost kind of like hurt. I'm like,
I put a lot of work into that.
I know. I was like, yes, I would love to have the investment. Come on, man. At least like take the email, like click it. But one of the things, I'm sorry, I was just thinking about that. That was funny. But when you and I connected via the article, the one thing you had mentioned in there was we were talking about like some of the headaches I was going through and how you've been there, and you gave advice, and you said nothing's, I forget how you worded it, I should have memorized it. It was like, nothing's a problem if you have enough money to solve it. It's like make sure you always raise enough CapEx. And I didn't say anything. I wanted to be like, there must be a story behind that sage wisdom. What would that story, like, apparently, because it's happened to me, but I'm assuming it's happened to you as well.
Yes. So, I've got one big story, and then there's always like you're always like looking like, okay, how much CapEx do we have versus what do we still need to do and timing of it. Right. And so I've never gotten to the point where I've raised so much that like, oh, we shouldn't have, I wish I didn't have that money.
Let me give it back. Let me give it back to them.
At the worst case, it's like, oh, I sleep really well because if something goes wrong, we can handle it. Right. So the biggest one that I've had a bunch of deals go really well. Right. And they've and whenever you start talking about the negatives, like you said, it can be spooky, but until you know that like the good stuff always outweighs the bad. And I have one deal where monetarily the good stuff did not outweigh the bad. All the rest of the deals are good and have had ups and downs and lumps of different types.
There's never, I just want to say, there's never a smooth road. Mobile home parks, there's nothing's going to go according to plan. Even the best plans are always laid to waste. But like you said, the good typically outweighs the bad. So it's nothing to be scared of. But what about this deal? Yeah.
I had $1 million problem.
Like literally,
like literally. Yeah. Fortunately, so I bought a park. It was my first park. Fortunately, it was just my park. So I didn't have investor money in this one. Thank God. So yeah, I had my first few parks. I bought these small parks, and I filled them in, made them better, sold them, refied them, did some things. I scaled them into my first like real park, which was it was a 51 pad park. It was a beautiful, right on a river, like nice location, stand up paddle boarders going by, like really nice spot, all tenant owned homes. And there was some empties, some empty pads. I filled in the pads. We installed Metron meters. We built back water. We took care of some stuff with the roads. We made it nicer. We did fencing. We did all the things you're supposed to do. I raised the income. Things are going well. I'd had it maybe a year and a half. This was 2021. At this point, I bought it early 2020. I'm halfway through 2021 right now. Like things are going well. I'm financially free. I went in to quit my job. Fortunately, my boss convinced me to stay part-time, which I did. And then literally like 2 weeks later, I get this call. I was about to go out on a hunting trip. It was a Saturday. I get a call from the property manager. which is never a good sign when the call comes in on a Saturday. And this property was right by the river, and it was not serviced by public sewer. It had city water, but because it was so close to the river, it couldn't have septic. So it had a wastewater treatment plant. And I made one very small, very large mistake when I bought the park. And that was, I didn't, when you buy any kind of real estate, you get an appraisal. The bank will have you get an appraisal, and the appraiser will typically list the replacement costs that you need to get insurance for. And I didn't question the appraiser's opinion of the replacement cost of this building and the wastewater treatment plant that was inside of it. So he had a replacement cost of $70,000. That's what we insured it for. And I remember thinking, like, is that right? And I was like, well, if it's actually only 100.
I saw my face. I was like, immediately, like, I just feel like for 50 lots, that's got to be so.
Yeah. So and the worst part was, it wasn't even like I didn't think about it. I did think about it. And then I said, well, I've got reserves. Like, if it's 100 and the whole thing, nothing's probably going to happen at all. If it does, and it's really 100, like, it's not going to sink the ship. That would suck, but I'll be fine. And so I didn't question. What I should have done in hindsight is go talk to someone who's replaced one, or go talk to a contractor and find out how much these things really cost. Because that call that I got on the Saturday was, hey, there was a fire. The thing burned down and it's totaled. Totaled the wastewater treatment plant.
So you got no sewer.
No sewer. So fortunately, I had a good manager who had already called and arranged with someone. I don't even know how he found this other person to come with a truck and like pump the stuff out. And I had the operator of the wastewater plant. This was like his part-time side gig. He actually worked for the municipal plant. So he was able to make an arrangement with the municipal where we had to pay for it, but they would take the sewage. So we were getting it temporarily pumped. Okay, we have insurance. So we have insurance. So we start figuring out what this thing's going to cost. I had just had a civil engineer, like a month before he had finished this thing, like come and actually do a report on the plant, because I was looking at some upgrades. Like, do we want to convert to UV? Will that be more efficient? Like that kind of thing. So I had a civil engineer, fortunately, who was already familiar with the plant. So I called up the engineer and was like, hey, this thing burned down. Like, what? And he knew the good contractor. So he introduced me to a good contractor. But the cost that ended up once I figured this out, it was real bad. $670,000 was the actual replacement.
That's not bad. Just off by $600K. I mean, that's
by a factor of 10. We were off by a factor of 10. And it's even worse than that, because the pumping was $800 per load.
Yeah.
Multiple loads per day, worked out to around $50,000 a month on a park that grossed, before any expenses, $25,000 a month.
Just hemorrhaging.
Screwed. So fortunately, the insurance, there was this other like special coverage thing that kicked in that had another $100,000 of this other coverage.
That could cover the pumping. I can't hang on.
I'm screwed. I'm screwed.
Like, I can't even fathom this because you have no other outs. I'm thinking in my head, like, I'm a problem solver. I'm like, well, you can't just put septics in. You can't just you don't have the money to just buy another one. The only other thing, I'm going to throw this out there, like, could you have connected anywhere to anybody's sewer line?
We looked at all of the above. Can we do septics? Absolutely not. You're too close to the river. Where is the nearest sewer line? It's like several miles away.
Oh, that's good.
There's a sewer line on the other side of the river. Can we run the pipe under the river? We seriously explore with the engineer all of these things.
Scuba diving, laying pipes, and this. Yeah, I got you.
So I mean, it was real bad. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was like, okay, I've got 2 months. At this point, this is a couple weeks in by the time I figured out how screwed I was. Like, I got a month and a half left of when this special coverage is going to run out. And then what do I do? Like, I can't pay to keep if there's no sewage. It's not even just me. There's 50 families in here.
Yeah,
they're going to lose their home. Like, if there's no sewage, you got no home. Or like, what? I don't know what to do. It's do I just evict everybody to stop just cancel all the leases and kick everybody out to stop the $50,000 a month? And now what do I have? An empty mobile home park? I owe money to the bank. It's a recourse loan. I'm screwed. Like, I was like, I had a very teary conversation with my wife. I was like, I think we're losing the house. I think we're losing everything. Like, I don't know what to do. I was like so lost. I didn't know what to do. I was
The only choice, hang on, the only choice that I see is you have to sell it. Like that's.
I looked at that. I had a buyer. I had a buyer. So I called my broker friend. I have a broker who, he like a buddy who has, I've bought and sold parks with him.
Wait, do you still own this park today?
No.
Okay. So you did.
So, but I looked at. Oh well, but eventually, but I was looking at, like, can I sell it now to someone who knows how to replace one of these things or has the capital, right? And so a group did come in, and I mean, obviously, like, I'm the motivated seller at that point, right? So the cost. So they were basically just going to pay off the mortgage and take the park, and I would have still done that, but they had their DD period, and I'm dumping at this point money, my own, I mean, like all of my savings, my HELOC, everything I've got at this point. I've got it. So I've got this team of people now looking at this replacement for this plant. So what happened, what I did was, at first I didn't know what to do.
Could you get a loan to buy a wastewater treatment plant?
I called everyone I could think of, and my buddy Blake, who actually bought my first mobile home park from, and we are now friends. I called him, and he had the best advice. He was like, dude, you just got to call your lender and level with them and tell them what's up. And so I did. I called John Metternach at First Secure Capital as the lender. He's an amazing human being who saved my butt. And I was just like, hey, John, I don't care if it's from a bank or an investor or anybody. I never want to be the person who, like, someone trusts me with money and I don't come through. But I was like, John, I don't know what to do here. Like, here's the situation that, here's the bills, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, this is what he says. He goes, oh, you're okay.
Wait, what was the time period?
What do you mean I'm okay? Like,
what was the time period between that call and when this happened?
I mean, this is a few weeks in now when I'm making this call, because it took a few weeks to figure out how much these things.
You're stressing out this entire time.
Oh, I wasn't sleeping.
Your lender.
I wasn't sleeping. Yeah, this is because it took a few weeks to figure out even like what the cost was. And it's a recourse loan. I'm just like, but so John was like, no, you're okay. He's like, what is the income right now? He's like, you bought it at a really good price. I bought it right at the COVID dip. Like like everything shut down and the price had dropped and dropped and dropped. I got a very good price on it. So you bought it at a good price. You added all this value. You've got the income up. He's like, you actually have a bunch of equity in this thing. So he did a a very fast cash out refi to get us capital for this replacement. And I put my whole savings and most of my HELOC into it. And when you add the two together, it was enough to get it done. And it was still this crazy thing where it was like at 50 grand a month, it was like, we got to be done by June. Right. And so we go to order it and they're like, oh, like it's whatever, 9 months is the wait time for one of these things. And the contractor, I had told him my story. He knew what was going on. And he talked to the manufacturer, Legacy Environmental. They had another customer that wasn't in a hurry and gave us their spot in line. Like, I don't even know who this person is. Once again, someone else saved my butt.
We got to find whoever this guy is. We got to find them.
So many people came, like everything came together. It was crazy. And so and we had to get the EPA approval, and they just kept doing, they give comments, we'd answer all their comments, they give a bunch more. And I'm like, can you just do one set of comments and we can answer them all? Cause we're in a hurry. Like, but it was like, they didn't have, it was like some new person on this. So we had to get all the EPA approval, and then we're like, just barely going to get there. And then the roads are thawing. It turns out there's a thing in Michigan where when the roads are thawing, they reduce the amount of weight you're allowed to tow over them. And the contractor's like, we can't bring it. And I was like, how long does it usually last? Like, I don't know. So I called the highway department, had to get like an exemption to this thing. The contractor's like, I've never even seen that happen before, but they gave us an exemption and we got it. We replaced it. It was the end of May. They got it installed. We turned it on. And I think I had like 2 or 3 weeks to spare before we were not going to have the money we were still going to be.
I'm sorry that this is one of the worst moments of your life, but I love this story. I was literally on the edge of my seat. I'm on like one of these like rocking seats. I am literally on the edge of this thing, leaning and listening, because I didn't know how it ended. I honestly thought you sold it. That's genius. That's why I wanted to know the time frame, because like I'm thinking about, like, as an operator, okay, like there's a lot of things we stress about and none of our LPs just don't know. And I know you had no LPs in this, and this was all you and your wife. And I'm thinking about the master class that you're learning in problem solving and like just due diligence and all these things that were probably, because I've been there, like going through, I should have done this. I should have done this. I didn't do this. Why didn't I do that?
If I had the insurance right, it would have been a huge headache. But at the end of the day, it would have been fine.
Not as stressful, but you're so lucky you had the heat lock. You're so lucky you had savings. You know how many people, I mean, you get into this, like, I don't have a line of credit. I have a lot of equity. I never pulled a line of credit on my home. Like, because, and here's the thing, is like, I was thinking like, man, maybe I should in case something bad goes wrong, because you don't get it when you need it. It never works that way. Like, you need to have it. Money only comes to those who don't need it, not when you're desperate to need. It's really weird how that works. And I was like, man, he's so lucky he had that. He's so lucky he had his savings. He's so lucky he had equity. Like, these things all worked out for you. But if I had to ask you this today, because I have an all-tenant on park that I want to sell you, but it's got a wastewater treatment plant. Are you buying it?
Probably not.
Just the
I
trauma.
know enough that I think I could be. Now I know way more about wastewater treatment plants than I ever wanted to know, and I think I could be successful with one now. I'm not necessarily opposed to them, but it would have to be like in order. Like they're kind of, even if you do them right, I feel like they're just a little. You have to have an operator. They're a headache. So you can do it. Like I've got a buddy he's got lagoons and he's got wastewater and I do think like if you had the insurance right, and if you have a good operator and everything's like tip top, like it could be fine. And I still end up getting sucked into looking at them. But my partner Thomas is always like, no, we're not doing the wastewater treatment plant. Stop it.
Like, I've never owned one, never wanted to. I heard your story now, but I've heard, you're not the only one. I've heard countless stories of people lamenting about wastewater treatment plants, to where I put it on my list of never look at them. Never, ever, 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 ever. And I just won't. Like, I've never done a lagoon, but I feel like I could really do a lagoon. You know, in Florida, like, we're all septics. Like, I didn't even know private systems existed. Like, if everyone's like, oh, city water, city sewer, I'm like, what's that? Like, everything, I'm on a septic. Every flip I did was septics. We're just so used to septics. And I'm from the country where I grew up too. I grew up on septic and well. So, like, that's normal to me. And if that goes wrong, okay, it's like depends on the tank, but like $8,000, $9,000. You put a whole new drain field tank, and that's like, yeah, it's gonna hurt that month, and maybe like 5 of them go wrong. You know, so what? 30, 40K. Like, yeah, you probably got that in reserves, but $600,000
didn't have that in reserves.
Yeah. So I digress, but like, weaving it all the way back. When I raise money, right? I come in and I get my purchase price, right? My down payment, and the down payment, closing costs, any fees involved, broker fees, wholesalers, lender fees, all these things. And then there's that little piece for CapEx.
Yep.
Now, I'm going to make numbers up. Let's say I got $1 million. I need $1 million for everything, down payment, all this stuff. And let's say like I need another 1.5 or something. This is an intense value add turn, right? Like 1.5 in CapEx. Do you raise, like, how do you do that? Do you raise all 2.5 on day one? Do you raise the initial down that you need today with some reserve? And then, because the way I always looked at it, and the reason why I ask is it's kind of like dead capital. It's like I'm paying money on it, but like, even if you gave it all to me on day one, I can't literally like do everything in my first year. It's just not, I mean, it would be miraculous if I paved the roads, laid new lines, new tanks, new homes, rehabbed all the homes, chopped the trees. So it takes time. So how do you handle raising money for the CapEx side of things? Not the purchase, but like the CapEx.
Yeah, so for the most part, we just raised it all at the front. And you're absolutely right. Like if you raised it in tranches, because you owe a pref on that, right?
Yeah.
Before you're going to make any money.
Sorry, I didn't say that. Yes.
You raise it all at once. Like it's definitely not as efficient. It would be more efficient to do it in tranches. I guess the one exception is we have like if there's something big and a maybe. So we've got one park where we're looking at doing a 22 lot expansion. And so we said like, hey, this is a potential. The deal works great without doing that. So we're going to treat this as if we're not doing that. And if we do, then we're going to raise additional money for that expansion, for example. But like for the most part, for the CapEx that we're going to do, we do raise it all up front. And it is kind of dead. I mean, you can put it in a high yield savings account and get a little.
You get
you get a little bit of interest on it. But you're right. Like the interest isn't as much as the pref. So and it's definitely like, I mean, if you raise more capital for the same deal and you leave the capital sitting longer, like it's not, and maybe this is where it's like being in the MH space. I feel like you don't have to, because it's still such a fragmented industry, there's a little more meat on the bone. So you don't necessarily have to eke out every little thing with the structure. I mean, this is why like the apartment people all got burned in 2021, 22, because the only way they could make deals pencil was like, we got to use floating rate debt to get like a little bit less interest so that we can make our deal. There's like, they're just making their deals pencil by just these small little things. I one of the things about the MH is like there's enough meat on the bone. You can get a little lazy, not lazy, but like you don't necessarily have to do all of those things.
You don't have to get that minute.
I like having that capital up front. I like it that it's there. We will pave the roads. We'll do this. The infill capital that's one where I've underraised it before. And even then it was like, okay, now we're going to raise extra. And it's still like you want to be able to infill all these things, but hey, they're not selling as well as we want. We're going to have to RTO some of these things. Now the capital's stuck in the home. Right. And you gotta, I think I like from a safety standpoint, I can sleep at night standpoint, if we owe a little more pref, if our returns an 18 instead of a 19 IRR, but we are safer, I like having some extra capital.
You will raise all the capital up front. Will you not close the deal if you haven't raised it all, or will you close the deal and then continue raising?
So we set a minimum. So we always set a minimum, and it actually specifies that in our PPM. Like, hey, we're not going to proceed if we don't get this much. But no, I'll still I didn't ever take me that long, but like on our the one we closed down in Clarksville in June, we had a few people that were in but hadn't funded yet, and then one of them was kind of a larger person who ended up backing out, and I had to go backfill that. So it took an extra month to get the funds in. But we were like, it was kind of thing where it was like we would probably be fine without it anyway, kind of an amount. So I wouldn't go in with like the deal will fail if I don't raise, if I don't raise more.
Well, that's kind of what I was asking too, is like, I was just curious. I mean, because I raised the capital and then it just sits there, and I got all this money for this one park sitting there, and I'm like, I just feel like I open up the bank account and I'm like, that's just a lot of money, just, sitting there. And I put it into a high yield savings because I didn't know what else to do. And we're about to spend it. This one park we're chopping, we got like 64 trees coming down.
Oh,
how much do you think my tree? Yeah.
I mean, that's six figures.
Yeah.
That's way six figures.
So like 64 trees,
$3,000 a tree. I'm gonna guess somewhere between 150 and 200.
Yeah. So, and I got tree trim. We got like another 20 some getting trimmed. We're right around 120, and I'm trying to get it closer to 100 good price right now. Yeah, I use them. So here's the benefit of buying in a I do the hub and spoke model. So keeping everything locate is I use my same vendors, right? Which is also why I like controlling my materials and my resources, because I can really control who I use and I don't have to go search for some magical unicorn. And so my guys know, like, if I buy a park nearby, like, I'm going to use you. So I've used him at my other parks. He's a good dude. But what was funny is like, we're wandering around the park and we're tagging trees. And his one guy kept coming. He's like, I don't know what we were at, maybe like the 15th one. He's like, this is gonna be like over 20 grand. And he's just kind of mumbling this. He's not like saying anything, and I can tell he's gauging. Like, is this guy gonna like back out? Like, is this?
Is this a waste of time because the bill's just gonna be too big?
That's what he kept doing. And then we got up, and he's like, "Wow, we're definitely over that 50K figure." He looked at the other guy and said it like really loud. And then like as we're towards the end, he looked at me. He's like, "Man," he's like, "this is really nearing like six figures." And I just looked at him and go, "Yeah. It's going to be what it is, but like these trees are growing on the
gotta happen." Yeah.
And so later that day, the owner called me, and he's like light footing around it. I want to use another word, but like he's just kind of like tiptoeing around it. And I go, "Luis, listen," I was like, "I get what's happening here. You're calling me because all the other jobs we did were nowhere near as big, and you're trying to gauge if you're totally going to shock me and make me hang up the phone on you by how big the size of this bid is." And I just stopped him, like, if you're asking me right now if I think six figures is too much, the answer's no. I said, so we could talk numbers. I said, but do I have a price in mind? Yes. I said, we work together. I know what your prices are, so I kind of know where we need to be. And from there, he's like, that's exactly what I was calling Mr. Pedersen. And I was like, now that we got that away, let's stop with all this. But that's a lot of money, right? And like, so it's nice to know that I have that capital to do that. And do we budget for it? We're actually hopefully going to be, depending on where this final bid comes in, under budget significantly.
Nice.
So I can apply that to something else that I neglected. Some of my other issues with some of my lots I had to plan out. But it's nice knowing that I don't have to stress of like a surprise tree bill. You know what I mean? Or like,
that's why it's always good to get those quotes in DD, right? So you can go get more quotes or try to negotiate or really fine tune it, but at least I got one person who said it's this, we can pay for that. So we'll obviously try to, if we can get it done in a quality way for less, like, you can solve that piece afterwards, but at least going in, you're okay as far as budget wise. Yeah.
And that's why I like using my same guys, because like a lot of times I just know their pricing. You've used them so many times, or you just call them up and you're just like, hey, John, I got this job. Like, how much are you going to charge me per like septic tank? I got like 15 of them. Like, what is it going to? And they're not, a lot of guys are like, oh, I don't want to tell you. I don't want you to hold my feet to the fire. But if you use the guys all the time, you're just so much easier. You can get that DD done. Now, here's a question for you. Making offers. You said in the beginning you like to focus, one of your roles is buying parks. And before we start to wind this down here, I wanted to kind of ask you, we've talked all the way through the capital raising, but buying the park, when you're buying these things, and I always get kickback from brokers, and same with wholesalers too, how much, before you make that offer, how much do you do? Because personally, I don't like to retrade. Like, if I'm going to come in, I'm just going to give you my offer. But here's the thing, is I've been in real estate for a long time. I've bought and sold many, maybe not mobile home parks, but many properties. I kind of you just know things after a while, but I need to know certain things. So before I make an offer, I want to know about the pipes. I want to know, come on, you know what the pipes are. You've owned this thing for like 10 years. Don't tell me you don't know the pipes and I got to wait to DD. I want to know about your financials. I want to know like what type of systems you have and all these things. I want to know your occupancy and your collections. I want to know the age of the homes and what size they are so I can figure out what I could charge. How much DD do you do before you make the offer, and what do you ask for from the people bringing you the deal?
So that's,
or am I out of bounds? Am I just
you're spot on. And I actually, it's funny you say that, because I feel like, having sold a few parks, I feel like most people don't do what you're talking about, and it boggles my mind. So yes, I want the same thing. I want to do as much DD as possible before I make the offer, so that I don't have to retrade. And because of that, I feel like I've built up some really good broker relationships where I'm actually really good friends with some brokers now who root for us. They send us deals before they're listed. If there's multiple offers in, there might be higher offers, but they know that we like keep our words. And so, but you can only keep your word with things that you know. So that's why I'm always asking, like, hey, give me your T12. Give me, let's have a rent roll. Let's have a T12. Tell me what CapEx is needed. And I will ask the questions, and I will base my offer on everything I know. And then in DD, it becomes like, okay, let's validate all this stuff. And if you didn't tell me something, we're going to figure it out. And now we have to retrace. Now we have to have that conversation because you didn't tell me, or maybe it's something you just legit didn't know and we found it in an inspection.
Yeah.
But usually it's like, you didn't tell me that, right? And so I don't want to retrace. I don't. And so I think that's actually like, there's my secret deal finder trick right there, is be honest and do your best to give an offer that you actually feel good about up front. And then brokers will root for you because they know that you're going to actually do what you said and close the deal.
Yeah, but that's
the thing. If you don't get the info, then I have made my, then I feel bad. Then I feel fine about making a guess and telling them, okay, like, here's this offer. I'm assuming this. I don't necessarily like put that in the LOI, but I'll tell them in an email or on the phone, like, okay, I'm just assuming whatever 35% expense ratio, or I'm going to have to, I'll ask the questions. If they don't have the answers, I'm going to have to take a guess. I'll still do my best with the offer, but I'm going to have to take a guess. And if my guess is wrong, then we're going to have a conversation about that in DD, because I based my offer, I have to be able to project a return for my investors. And so there's
time and money.
You get into the order of DD, right? So we're always trying to do, and this is why I tend to negotiate for a little longer DD period too, because I want to do.
How long?
I love 60 days 60, if I can 60, get it, but
I
love 60. I'll do 45
on a big park. If it's like 30 lots, I don't need 60. But if we're talking like 50, 80 lots, like I need 60 days to do everything.
And it depends on how much info you have too. If it's that really good offer where they gave me all the DD stuff up front, I've got their whole DD.
Yeah.
I'll go short. But if it's like, hey, I don't know, I'm making all this up right now. I got a lot of stuff to figure out here. So I will typically try to do like our big deal breaker things first before we spend any money, because I don't want to go spend a bunch of money on surveys and appraisals and inspections if we're just going to figure out that, hey, the city will not let you get an install permit unless you have 20 feet between the homes, and you don't have 20 feet between the homes. So all those empty lots can't be used, and you can't even replace homes. That's just a deal breaker. So, we'll try to go through those big deal breaker things in the first, like attack them really hard in the first week or two. And then we'll say, okay, now we're going to go fly out. We're going to walk all the park-owned homes. We're going to meet the inspectors on site. Okay, now we're going to start paying for some. So we've got we'll kind of escalate it up. Like now we're okay spending some money, on all the third-party stuff. But yeah, you've got to have some kind of a feel for the fact that you're just going to stick before you dump all the money.
Some of the bigger brokers, like I was talking to somebody from, I'm trying to think of the brokerage name. Yeah, I found it. I had not dealt with the person before, but I just found it. I was just asking the guy. I was like, well, how old are the homes? Oh, his response. Well, I don't know off the top of my head, but we put in how many park-owned homes there are. That's in the OM. And I was like, yeah, no, I know that, but like 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. Like I'm just trying to figure out. Like you guys are making some aggressive assumptions here. I'm just trying to see like what I could charge. And do you know the infrastructure of the pipes? And he's like, no, I don't think they do, but you could do your inspections. I'm like, well, they've owned this park, it looks like, from county records, since like 2014. How do they not know what the pipes are? Like, I know what my pipe, every park, you ask me, I know what my effing pipes are. Like, there's no way you don't know. And like, and more and more I get that. And I'm like, and they just want me to make the offer. And I just don't feel comfortable because, like, one, I just feel like there's something on the back end.
Well, it is short-sighted for them. Like if I'm selling, it's a crazy thing. Like, give me your financial, give me at least a T12 and a rent roll. Like, they'll give you that after you make your offer. And I'm like, well, then my offer's bogus. Like, it's not going to stick.
That's where I'm getting at. That's where I'm going.
I want to give you all. If I'm selling the park, I want to take away every excuse you have to retrade. I am going to give you all of my stuff. Tell you everything I know. Yeah. Hey, this is what's wrong. I'm going to tell you all of it so that your number's based on something real. You know what I mean? So that when you do come back and try to retrade on something that you already knew, I can tell you to go pound sand and feel good about it.
I know. You know what I mean? Like, true. It's like back in the day, I used to sell in like 2010. I used to sell the foreclosures in the downturn for like Wells Fargo and them. And I got so tired of people retrading or backing out. They're foreclosure homes. They're pieces of what. I would take photos of the worst parts of the home, like not even nice photos, just like toilets, just poop smeared on the wall. And that's what I would put on the MLS or like to advertise it, because like, and I would in the description be like, this has no piping. This has none of this. Like, because I didn't want you to get into it and be like, oh, well, there's no piping. Well, yeah, I mean, you saw the picture.
You knew that. Yeah.
So I got into that habit. And like right now, it's like all of our stuff is in Rent Manager or some type of G sheet or something. And it's like, if I'm selling one of my parks, I don't know why I wouldn't want you to know everything. Like I'd give you a pre-offer packet and be like, here's like a T12. Here's like a list of all the things we've done. Here's what I still have not done. Like, here's what I'm asking. Knowing all this, can you give me that price? Simple as that.
And there's some brokers out there that I work with that'll do like when you're making the offer, they'll already give you. And I'm like, that's how I know. There's good brokers. Yeah,
good brokers. But
we'll
otherwise,
have that info
I agree with you. Yeah. It's like you're just my offer and I said that to one guy. I didn't say it that way. I was like, well, then my offer is kind of like pointless if you're just expecting me to figure all this out after the fact. I was like, how do I know what to offer? Because I did one. The only deal I retraded on was it was huge. It was almost 200 lots. I wish I would have bought. This is like the one I just like. It's like the girl that got away, and like I know it wasn't good for me. She was toxic, and I should have never like wanted to date her to begin with. But like she's so high, and you're like, oh, and that's this to me. And I really wanted this part, but the guy, like I went through it. I had got all the way through everything, and I was like, crap, I forgot to scope the lines. And so it was like towards the end of my DD, and I hired someone to go scope. I called person after person. I actually got in touch with the guy who had worked in the park. It was just coincidental, random called a second. Oh, so-and-so, he's the one who does that stuff. Let me have him call you and he can come out and meet you. I heard every horror story in that. Turns out they were clay piping it was Orangeburg sewer pipes, pretty much. All
Oh, the
front yard.
Orangeburg is
Not good.
real bad.
And then it was I'm trying to think of what the regular pipes were. The water pipes were also bad. Stainless or cast. Yeah, I think it was galvanized, but either way, he's been replacing them through the years. And I told the seller this. It was like the agent, not a realtor, but the property management / partner type person. And they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm like, dude, I was like, I need an extension to figure this out. Like, I need to get quotes. I'm not saying no. And he didn't want to give me an extension. Luckily, I used Ferd Neiman's document, which gives me an automatic extension if I want it and all this stuff. And so, like, I was able to get my extension. The quote I had was like 1 point some million. It was 200 lots. I mean, it was going to be a crazy, and the pipes were under the roads. So on top of all my other CapEx,
rip up the roads and
But luckily, I had already budgeted because I knew I'm very conservative. I had put down like 750 or 800K just for piping because I didn't know. And the way I looked at it was like, when you make the offer, I was like, worst case scenario, I don't need it. Best case scenario, I have it. But here's the whole point of the story. I ended up backing out, but he wouldn't give me a retrade on it. But his argument was, this was your offer. Like, why am I going to go down? My argument was, and I didn't say it, and I really wish don't act like you didn't freaking know.
Like, I mean, you're making an offer based on a certain set of facts. Like, the facts are driving your offer. And so if you have new facts, especially if the person knew about the facts,
what do you think the odds? What do you think the odds that he didn't know? What do you think the odds that he didn't know? That they were Orangeburg and galvanized pipes that have been leaking, and the plumber's like, yeah, he's like, I was out there the other week or last month and I replaced this lot, and he knew the lot number, and he's like, we charged him $3,000 for that, and he knew the pricing. And this guy's like,
clearly
no idea what you're talking. He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. As far as
there's no way that anyone with Orangeburg doesn't know they have Orangeburg, because you have to have a plumber out there every month and a half. I've had some Orangeburg, but all this stuff about Orangeburg and DD, and I'm always like, make sure they're not Orangeburg pipes and all this. And then maybe 6 months or a year ago, my kid's in the shower and he's like, Dad, why is the shower water coming up? I was like, oh, turn the water off. Turned out I have Orangeburg in my backyard. I
wasn't expecting you to say that. That's like very the lead.
It collapsed like Orangeburg does, because it's basically cardboard.
It decays
and just turns into a dirt tunnel full of poop.
Yeah. So I learned. I did not know. I learned quite a bit on Orangeburg. I learned a lot about all that stuff, but I still want to buy that part. Like, because I could do it. I could do the work. I know I can. Like, the work didn't scare me. It was like, I asked him for, like, I forget what it was, but it was a fair amount to equal what it was supposed, from what I budgeted to what I needed. And I thought it was fair, and he just wouldn't budge. And I was like, well, then I gotta back out, dude. Like, this sucks. Like, I was like, and he tried to accuse me. He was like, oh, I get it if you don't have the money to buy it. I'm like, it's definitely not about the money. I just need to be clear. Like, it's the piping. If you give me the reduction, like, I'll buy it.
You need to make X return. If it's an extra $750,000 of CapEx, that changes the return.
Yeah, like,
it's just math. It's a spreadsheet. Like, you put this number in that cell and it changes that cell. Like, that's all it is.
Yeah. I mean, but I liked it because there was going to be a lot of infill, and I really wanted to get into infill. I mean, infill is a huge part of where you can get a huge jump. I'm trying to think of the right wording, but like, just by filling in that lot, you're realizing like 75. I mean, depending on what you put there in the income, but you're realizing like 70 to 90K worth of just value per lot. Personally, would you agree?
Yeah, I was looking at it like on a 7. So like, I was looking at this at our one of our Kentucky parks. Is direct build water sewer, so we have no water sewer cost. So really, there's not any more incremental cost for having a tenant-owned home on the lot. So like, pretty much all of the lot rent drops to the bottom line, and we're bringing people in at what are we bringing them in at? We were 550. I think we're 580 right now is what we're bringing new residents in at. So if you 7 cap that, it's like 90 some odd $1,000 per lot. So that's cool. Like, every 11 lots is $1 million.
But so I like park owned homes, and I love tenant owned homes. One of my parks is all tenant owned. It's the easiest park I have. But when you do it, like, I looked at 21st, and like, so they're talking about, like, I have 2 different ways to kind of do it, but like, I don't like their model for if I want to sell the home, because if I want to sell the home, they take a piece of it. I have to carry it, and then I have to sell it for a certain amount of pricing. I mean, it just seems pretty crazy. Whereas versus, and Legacy has some financing models too where you can use them, versus I pay for the setup and I get financing on the home and the AC and all that, the delivery, but I pay for setup on my own. But so that may be like 15, 18K to prep and set the lot and get everything connected and the delivery and all that, those things. But I mean, how do you budget per, like, how much do you budget per lot on a new home?
So for a new home, I think it's normally in that like high teens. So we'll budget like initially if we're buying the park, I'm budgeting 20K per lot,
per
typically
lot.
of lot prep. Like as far as do we need to upgrade the utilities? You got to put the footers, based on the home layout, and lot prep and installation. That's like all in like lot prep and installation, right? So that's home shipping, setting, skirting, like we're like
all of it, right? Yeah. So
yeah.
all in, let's just say 20K. But now let's say you're in a market where you have all these infill lots, but maybe maybe homes are like $125, $150. It's not going to be a good selling market. Maybe down the road, they're new homes. I get it, but like you could really crush it on cash flow, and then maybe get them in because they're living there, transition them into buying it with some type of chattel mortgage. Like, do you guys do that, or do you look at that? Like, how do you structure that then?
Yeah, and we have that. So some of our parks, like they just sell like hotcakes. I love those places, but not all of them. And so we've got somewhere, we've got a lot of demand. Like the people need the housing, but for whatever reason, like it's hard to find people with that down. A lot of times it's the down payment,
credit and down payment. Yeah,
and if your credit's lower than 21st or whoever will want a bigger down payment. So we do have some of those. So what we'll do is we'll set them up on, it's like a rent credit, like a rent to own, but it's not a full rent to own where you're going to pay the mortgage all the way off. We'll let them pay rent and have a portion of that go towards their down payment in 1 to 2 years, typically. So if we can get them like you're renting it for a year with the intent that you're
paying the mortgage.
Yeah. So we always make sure that the rent is going to cover the mortgage plus the insurance plus the taxes, and then whatever's left over of that, a portion of that will go towards the credit. So we try to factor in. So we're trying to factor in. So we're at least not, we don't need to like make.
You want I get it. You want the lot rent per se. I get that. And, and honestly, like in my markets, I've run the numbers and it's like most of our stuff, even in like Little Rock area, like I'm at $990. I'm at $1,000 for a park owned home. I'm at like $450 for lot rent, $500 for getting to $500. But new homes, 3.2, depending on the size of it, 16 wide, whatever it is going to be. I mean, you'd be looking at $1,200. I mean, I can pretty decent rental income on that. But do I want to own it? Like, I feel like owning a new home's good for the first couple of years, but by year 5, things start to.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, like, because it sounds like you do more of the park owned home model. I have a theory on the park owned homes. We've always geared towards the tenant owned, and we have a handful of park owned. And I know people who do more of the park owned home model. My theory is that it's bad to be in the middle. You either want to go all one way or all the other, because if you have all tenant owned with just a handful of park owned homes, the park owned homes aren't bringing enough extra income in to have like a full-time maintenance person. So when the tenant needs weather stripping on their door, if it was a tenant owned home, they just go to Home Depot and buy weather stripping for $3 and install it themselves. Whereas we have to go get some vendor contractor to do it, and it costs us $100, right? So like versus like if you have all of your homes are park owned home, there's all this extra revenue that in my brain, the way this, so I try to figure out how this works, because our park owned homes are always like, it's the 80-20 rule. They're 80% of the headaches and 20% of the homes. And but if they were all park owned, you've got all that extra revenue. Maybe you've got this maintenance man now that maybe you have enough revenue that not only do you have your on-site person, who our on-site person isn't always like a maintenance person. Maybe you've got this maintenance person who now you can just be like, hey, go, some sort of ticket system and go fix this, go fix that. Hey, patch the leaky roof over there, do the weather stripping over there, fix the leaky toilet over there. Like that's how I kind of have it in my head, because I can't fit, because like our park owned homes, I'm like, I don't want any more of them.
No, I mean, work. They are, but they aren't. Like, so it's I could go on with this, but it just depends. You either come in, The idea is to come in. So when I bought my first park was my learning lesson. I come from a flipping background, but it's like that first park, I was SOL. And like I was chewing up capital to try to feed the park owned homes. And what I found was this: we had like and I'm making this up because at that point I did not actually do proper bookkeeping, but I was probably closer to like a 70% expense ratio because everything was falling apart. But once you rehab them and you put that capital on the new parks I'd buy with proper CapEx, and you come in and you rehab those things at full, you're talking new roof, new floors. And since I control the materials, I know my material numbers, store code, so I can easily fix things, paint matching, all of those things. So in that park, we're down to like 40% expense ratio in a park owned home. We have very minimal ongoing repairs on our rehabbed units because we've done everything to it.
And you're using durable, good stuff that you're putting in there.
Yeah, so I'm doing those things, and it's a new roof, and it's a new AC, and it's all those things. But yes, does it hurt when you come in and if you're trying to band-aid those things, it's the worst investment you could ever make, because one AC will eat all your cash flow, and you're right, you don't have enough. But if you come in with a budget and the numbers make sense, and you're like, I'm budgeting 15K or 20K to rehab this home, and that's brand new cabinets, that's everything, and your numbers make sense with that, I don't know why I wouldn't do it, because it makes sense. And then the upkeep, my turnover cost is still less than like $800 typically. And like when I turn over one, as long as the tenants didn't completely damage it, because really it's a cleaning, pest control. I'm just maybe repairing some blinds, and I'll deduct from their deposit for that, but it's not that big. But where I was going with it, so yes, it could be lucrative, but it also is a headache. And we do have a lot of them in one area, so that way I can use my guys. We do not have maintenance crews. We have one guy at one of the parks, and when we bought it, I fired like 3 people she had working for him, because it's just not my business model to have maintenance crews on deck, cutting lawns, doing this and that, and raking leaves. I fired everybody, brought one guy down to like 10 hours a week just to check meters for me and handle a little thing. And I used my crews from like actual contractor crews. But with infill, going back to that, when you're doing those loans, what's your structure on those loans? Are you still going 21st, and then you pay the monthly to them, and then you infill, and so that's your strategy essentially, and then hoping that you can convert them in after they give you enough rent credit stuff, convert them back to the 21st on their own?
For the new homes where we use 21st to bring it in. Yes, we have used 21st so we're making the payments. The rent that they're paying is covering the payments plus the taxes and insurance. And then we're taking basically a portion of the cash flow and saying that's going to be a credit towards your down payment. So that's what we're doing for the new home. For used, we'll use our own capital, right, to buy it, bring it in, set it up. If we need to rehab
which is not so much different than what I'm doing but only when I rehab, I keep. When you rehab, you sell, and then you move them over to get their own loan as well.
Right. And so we use 21st. Credit Human is a good one that we use. They've got a little higher credit limit requirement, but they're, unlike 21st, they're non-recourse to the park owner. So it's just between the resident and them.
So that was my next question. You got to sign recourse on all these things?
So 21st is not bad. So 21st, if the tenant defaults, you technically have to take the loan back, but you can make payments on it. So you come in, you'll have to go through the whole eviction process. You got to do your turn with whatever, if they've defaulted, they've typically trashed the home too. So you got to go in and like clean it up and then find someone else to resell it to. So you can pick up and make the payments. The sketchy one, I don't mean to like talk trash on the companies. Like I think they have advantages. Maybe they're less strict on who they lend to. Maybe they do lower credit score kind of things. But the one that I think you have to be careful with is PEP. I've talked to some folks that use PEP, and what PEP does is your recourse. And it's not like if the tenant defaults, it's not like you just, and maybe I could be wrong about this. This is what I've heard. If the tenant defaults, they don't say, hey, you have to pick up their payments. They just say loan is due in full, pay me.
Oh no.
So you've got to have all that capital sitting aside.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. And maybe
I like the other one.
I could be missing some details there, but I was talking to some people, because we've been looking at different ones. I was talking to some people that use PEP that kind of got burned a little bit that way, where they had a couple of tenants default at once. And it was like
I don't want to do that. I mean, so we're looking, I mean, I got a lot of infill I'm about to do. And so that's kind of our next step. We've rehabbed all these homes. We've really intense raised our rate, because that's the first thing, right? Raising the income up. But now it's like infill. And I listened to everyone talking about infill, and it's like, well, what if you don't sell them? Like, I get it. You want to sell them. I get it. Like, I want to sell them. But like, I want homes. So I want to, like, I love park
and
homes.
it's way easier to find renters than it is to find 100%, right?
And
so you can lease them up faster, which is why we've kind of gone to that, like, hey, do you want to be an owner eventually? Like, okay, we'll rent to you. You know, we kind of like help people into the home ownership thing that way. And 21st is good. Like they've actually, like, they're kind of aligned with that. And so they're you know, they're down with that sort of thing. Credit Human's a good one. The other one, sometimes there's some of the local banks you can look at sometimes. So in one of our Minnesota parks, there's a local bank that will lend to tenants, and they just go straight to the tenant. And so we just send everybody to that bank, and the bank will lend on the mobile homes. And it's just between the totally non-recourse to the park owner. And we've had really good luck with them. So so sometimes it's like, it's worth, not most of the banks don't do that, but like if you call like the smaller local ones, some of them will lend on mobile homes. So.
And one of my last questions here on infill and getting this tied up is because we've dude, I didn't even realize we went over 2 hours.
Yeah,
We've just been talking. I think AI took up a huge chunk of it. But because honestly, I could keep going. There's so many things when it comes to operations. But so with infill, sounds like you do a lot of it, and you have a great idea, which is essential for investors, because I don't think a lot of passive investors understand. You could pick somebody to sponsor your deal or to operate your parks and all that, but they have to be good at all the things, because every park needs a little bit of something. And even if they haven't done it, they have to have the intelligence and skill, or the team, to do it. And it sounds like you have that covered, right? And you got the loans, and you know all of that. Now, did you become, what's the word? Did you source and become a dealer to bring the homes in as well, to give you that extra edge over other operators?
Yeah, we do get the dealer's license in each state, and every state does it differently. That's actually one of the key. If you're going into a new state, a key thing to look at is, because there's some states where you have to have like an apprenticeship for years, and other ones are just like, fill out this form, and some of them you have to take a class.
Some of them are easy. I became a dealer in one state. Yeah.
Totally different. But yes, you definitely, if you're going to be moving more than one or two homes, it's worth it, because you get the wholesale pricing. So you're getting the new homes at a cheaper price. 21st won't even work with you if you're not so if you want to use 21st, you have to. So yeah, you definitely want to use that dealership.
Who do you get homes from? Who's your preferred?
We've had really good luck with the regions we're at. There's a lot of Champion is where we've gone through. They've got good pricing and nice. They're not like the brand new homes that come in they're real nice. Like,
you do wallboard or drywall?
It's drywall. It's drywall. Yeah, it's drywall. They're very nice looking homes on the inside. It's not like Legacy? The old 1960s.
I've heard some stuff about Legacy.
Looking at them recently, I don't think we've used Legacy. I know we were looking. I know I've seen a quote from one of them recently. I don't.
Yeah, I got some quotes, and their prices were pretty fair. I was going to go visit their facility up in Georgia. So Champion's your go-to. You got your dealer's license. Any other models? Any other manufacturers that you prefer to bring in? Any True Homes or anything like that? I'm trying to think of some of the other brands.
We haven't. We've done a lot of used. So we've done a lot of and Thomas has really taken the point on that. But so he built a bunch of relationships with a bunch of like the repo vendors, which are a really good source of used homes. So we've got a whole smattering of those as well. So the challenge, the real tricky one is we if it's like a 3-2, if we can fit a 3-2, we fit a 70-foot home. Like there's kind of a lot of those. A decent number of those used, at least in the states where we are, which has driven a lot of where we invest now, because other states are hard to find used homes. But Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee seem to have a lot of mobile homes floating around. But so the new ones where we really, really focus on those is for the small lots, because sometimes we'll have those like, hey, you can fit a 14 by 48, but that's it. And there's just no used 14 by 48s floating around out there that we can find. So a lot of times we'll use the new homes for the weird lots, because you can order it but maybe you can't find it. So.
Yeah, that's true. I get what you're saying, because some of those, I got one in this park. It's really tiny. I was thinking, like, what am I putting on this like 50-foot lot? Like, I don't even like. It's like, get a freaking tiny home. Like, I'm gonna put one of those tiny homes on here. Like,
yeah, that's the small lots are hard. And then it's like you have to order it new. So now it's going to sell at a higher price point, but it's a 2-bedroom, so it's in lower demand. So the small lots are definitely tricky. If you can fit a 3-2, I feel like they sell all day long.
I 3-2s are great. 2-1s or 2-2s. The 2-1s are horrible. The 2-1s, even renting, it's like, yeah, we can get a single person into them, but we get a lot of couples and families, and everyone wants 2 bathrooms. So 2-2s like where we're really at, but 3-2s idea. 3-2, even if you want a 2-bedroom, and the price difference in our parks on the rental side of things is not really that different between a 2 and a 3. I mean, it's, if you can afford the one, you can afford the other typically, and everybody really wants the 3 bedrooms. All right, listen, we're at 2 hours and 10 minutes. I really appreciate your time. This was, I have so many other questions for you because I love your experience and all these things, but that would be for another time. But I do have a question to tie this up, and I want you to think about it, because we've talked about operations, and I've made mentions of, for investors, and you got to have the right operator that does this or that, and unbiasedly, in a biased way, why should, or what is your unique reason that a passive investor, if listening, would choose you over the other 2 or 3 dozen MHP operators out there? What is the thing that you think sets you apart, that makes you a good steward of capital for passive investors?
That's a good question. And you're right. There's a lot of other MHP operators out there, and I know several that are great MHP operators. So I would say that I wouldn't dive into. I think that we do a very good job on operations, and we're always trying to improve. But I wouldn't go there, because there's a lot that are good operations. I would go with the fact that this is going to sound corny, but I care, and I try to do a good job of communicating. So, it's at some point, do you know and like and trust the person that you're investing with at some point? So some people do.
What then, knowing that, what would you tell an investor then? What would you tell an investor, or even an operator looking to raise money, how to get to know, like, and trust you, how to get investors to know, like, and trust you, and what should an investor look for? Because this could be hard, right? Like, and I don't want to go into the weeds on this, but nowadays, yes, you could get a referral from somebody, and one of your other investors refers this investor to you, and that's great when that happens. First person approval, always great. But a lot of times it's social media, it's speaking engagements, it's you meet at an event or something, to where maybe they don't know you that well, but they are interested in MHP. So what would you tell somebody? Like, dude, I get it. You say you care, but like, how do I know you care?
Very good point. So there was kind of 2 questions there, right? There's like from the capital raiser standpoint, and from the passive investor standpoint. So from the passive investor standpoint, like if I'm going to go invest in someone else's deal, I want to get to know them. I want to get to know their track record. So I like the phrase, like, bet on the jockey, not the horse. So you need to look at the deal and make sure it's a deal that you like, but there's no reason to even start with that until you make sure you trust the person. Because there are, like, I also know people who have been scammed and Ponzi. There's like bad stuff out there. It happens. So can you trust the person? Do they have a track record? And then the other thing I would always look at is, like, is this business plan something that they have done before? Like, is this a rinse and repeat kind of business plan? Or is do they just kind of have a theory and this is the first time they're doing it? And there's a first time for everybody, but probably you should do that with your own money.
family friends,
so
your own money.
Yes. And there's already like a built-in trust there. So maybe there's that too, but like, there's a first time for everything. But especially if it's someone you don't know, like, you need to get to know them and trust them. And who else do you know? What do they have a track record? What do their other investors say? And have they done this before? That would be what I would be looking at. And then you can go look at, okay, what's the deal? Do I feel okay with that locate? I always throw out the ideal acronym, which I didn't invent. That's from Frank Rolfe, but like the infrastructure, density, economics, age of home, location. Those are the 5 things I'm looking at on the actual specific deal. But I wouldn't even get into any of those until you figure out like, this is a person I trust with my hard-earned money.
Would you do it? So people lie. All people lie in a certain sense, especially when we are talking about ourselves. Would you recommend them before they ask me or you or whoever the questions to do your own kind of like if your backdoor research, like go on social media, look up their Facebook, look up reviews, see if you can find any complaints, BBBs, is that would that be your first step for that knowing and trusting aspect before you just say, Cory, tell me why I should know you and trust you and tell me your track record?
For sure. Yeah. And if I was going to invest my money with somebody that I didn't know, like I would be doing, yes, I would be looking on social media. I'd be Googling them. The other thing you can, and I forget the website there's, and I haven't had, some of the fund of funds people I've worked with have done this with me, but most of the LP people have not, but I wouldn't balk at it if somebody wanted to. There are actual like background check websites you can use, very similar to what we use for a tenant, right?
Do you have one? I had that idea and I was looking for one. I was like, I would love to include a background check of myself and just like, here you go. If you have one, send it to me. That's a great idea though.
Yeah, they exist. I don't have it off the top of my head here, but
I wouldn't be offended if you asked me to do that. If you're going to give me a couple $100,000, you're like, hey, I need this before I'll talk to you. What do I have to hide, right? Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, of course. It totally legit, right? So I guess maybe that's the biggest thing. Some, especially like the newer LPs, will sometimes get self-conscious about asking questions, and they'll like apologize for being like, oh, sorry, but do you mind showing me some info on a past deal? I'm like, don't apologize. Yes. Like you should be able to ask any questions that you want to ask. And if someone starts getting annoyed or like making you feel like you shouldn't be asking those questions, that's probably someone you don't want to invest with.
I agree with that. Yeah. That's 100%. So one of the things I like about your emails, if any past investors out there listening, think about investing, is you also talk about your family. You talk about spending time with your kids. And I don't know you, but at the same point, I'm like, okay, this guy's got some values. He's not posting about taking a trip to, I don't know, Cabo or Tahiti or Greece, or he's talking about going hiking with his kids. Like, yeah, right. Like, because that Ferrari is my money. Like that acquisition fee, did that go to that Ferrari? Is that no? But like, so maybe another thing is signing up for the person's emails or sign up for the person's subscription or whatever it is that they have and check them out. So like, and then you're saying, go and ask them their track record. Don't be afraid to ask them for their past deal decks or whatever it is, or performance or snapshots or whatever they have. Ask them for those things after you feel comfortable getting to know them on the social media side of things.
Ask them what's gone wrong in their deals and how they've dealt with it, right? And that's if nothing's ever gone wrong, that's probably a red flag, because they're either not telling you something or they don't have a lot of experience, because stuff goes wrong,
Yeah.
And you've got to kind of have some perseverance to get through it. So yeah, that's what I would say. And then from the capital raising side of thing, not that I'm like all the way the expert, but I think just communicating a lot and trying to put yourself out there, right? So that you
put yourself out there. I think that that kind of is symbiotic with what you just said from the passive investor side. Because if I don't put myself out there, how are you going to learn about me?
Right. 100%. Which it feels weird talking about yourself, but you kind of have to a little bit somehow, or else no one will know that you exist.
But right? I like that I went to your LinkedIn page and you had a little bio, and I that's how I had my intros. I read about your stuff there, and I was like, okay, like I see the path he went on to get here, and you have a website and you have a social media presence. So yeah, like you're putting yourself out there. So if I'm going to give my money to somebody, would I give it to the operator who's putting themselves out there so I know who they are, or the person who is shrouded in mystery and I just have to believe whatever he tells me? So as an operator, put yourself out there. That's probably the best. It's simple, but probably like the most no nonsense advice you could give. But it could be embarrassing though. it could be embarrassing to put yourself out there, like to make videos, type emails, like talk about your mistakes. Like that could be that's not easy for a lot of people.
Oh man, I was like, after that whole wastewater thing, like it was like, do I talk about that was especially
Will
like
you
the
be
first time when I
judged?
started.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just finally I was like, well, this is who I am. This is what I've been through. This is what I'm doing. That's the information somebody needs to know. If there's probably someone who's like, oh, he screwed that deal up, I'm not investing with him.
Yeah.
And that, but that's okay, right? Like I don't
Yeah.
need everybody to invest. I'm not going to be the right person for every investor,
Yeah.
right? And so yeah, I've kind of just decided like I kind of am who I am. And
I like that advice though. You gotta find
yeah.
your people. Not everyone's gonna do it, but you gotta put yourself out there to find. I mean, I'm summarizing for you, but it's like you're not gonna find everybody to want to invest with you. But if you put yourself out there, who you are as an operator, you will find the right people to invest with you, and those people will probably invest again and again with you. And as an investor, if you're looking for those things in an operator and you're looking to see who they actually are, you'll have much better luck with people you know, like, and trust than just going by the person who has a great track record. I'd rather invest with somebody that I know where their values stand versus, because things will hit the fan, like no matter what, things will, and you need to know
Always.
where someone's values are. Okay. Well, I don't know. Whew. 2 hours and 20 minutes. This was honestly, it flew by. I really appreciate you.
Yeah.
Do us one favor for our listeners. Where can they find you? So somebody's got a lot of money. They want to invest with you on an upcoming deal. Not saying you have one. This is not an official offering. However, if they want to learn about you, potentially invest with you, get your resources, talk to you or your team, how will they learn, get to know, like, and trust you, Cory?
Yeah. So I've got the free resource, like you said, at passivemhp.com. There's links in there with my phone number and email and booking
Really?
call links and all of that. And otherwise, I'm also very active on LinkedIn. Cory Harelson. It's great. It's me who answers the DMs. It's not somebody else.
It's not someone from Guadalajara.
Yeah, you can get me on LinkedIn. Is another great way. So.
Well, listen, it has been wonderful to have you on, providing the value that you've had over your 10 plus years of experience, your horror stories of wastewater treatment plants, your expertise in building teams and systems and infill. Like I said, I don't think we even began to scratch the surface. However, we always have to leave the people wanting more. So thank you very much for joining me on the MHP Operator Experience Show. I am Brandon Pedersen, and if you could please like, follow, and subscribe, that would be excellent. Thank you very much. See you guys on the next one.